All right, folks. We all know that one of the most common mishaps in hunting is damage to your rifle scope. Last year, I found the solution to that problem with the Stealthy Hunter rifle cover. It wraps around your scope and actions securely to protect it from getting knocked off of zero or even severely damaged. Stealthy Hunter also has a glassing pad and a wide variety of supplements for the outdoorsman, such as protein powder, CBD products, turmeric, and gut health supplements. They also make a lightweight trauma kit weighing in at just 14 ounces that includes everything you need and nothing you don't for all of your backcountry medical emergencies. To shop all of their equipment and supplements, go to StealthyHunter.com and enter the discount code at checkout, The Northern Hunter, to save on your order today. All Stealthy Hunter equipment is proudly made in the USA.
You're listening to the Northern Hunter Podcast, home of all things hunting, fishing, and outdoors in Alaska.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. My name is James Payne.
I'm Dalton Gray.
And Mo is predisposed at the moment. He had to leave. So we're doing a long day here. But we do have the pleasure of sitting down with a fellow long-haired Army veteran, Maxwell Stepp. How you doing, man?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah. Appreciate you cutting out some time. So you've been up here for a little while now, and you do some guiding, did a little bit of hunting guiding from the sounds of it, did some ice fishing guiding and whatnot. So I'm excited to talk to you about all of that.
We haven't really had a dedicated fishing guy on the show yet.
And this is actually, that's a huge thing because if the intro to the show is like, the Northern Hunter Podcast, all things hunting, fishing, and outdoors in Alaska. And to date,
it's all been hunting.
We haven't done any fishing stuff.
I've noticed that from what I've heard on here. I'm like, man, they got to get a fishing guy on here.
Yeah. So
it's me. It's going to be me. So, I'm great. I'm happy. I'm ecstatic to be here.
Somebody had to do it. I am the chosen one. But yeah, so we're happy to have you on. We're excited to talk some fishing. We'll probably end up throwing some hunting in there too, just because that's what we do. But guys, if you are enjoying what you hear and listening to the show, make sure you are subscribing on whatever platform you're listening to it on. If you could give us a written review, that's awesome. And a star rating, 5 is always the best. That all helps get us in front of more eyes, more audience, and helps the show grow. If you would like to support what we're doing on a more financial level, we have the shop. If you go to the website at thenorthernhunter.com, we've got the shop page there with some hats, hoodies, t-shirts, and we got the partners page with companies that have decided to support what we're doing. They got discount codes for you guys. So all of them are hunting related companies. So you can go use the discount code, helps them and helps us, and you'll get some really cool gear at the same time. So we appreciate everybody that supports us. And as always, if you have any questions about what we talk about in this show or just a question in general for the future, we got the contact button there on the website, or you can hit us up at either one of our socials. We usually reply, but we all work full time, so sometimes not so much.
It's been fun to get a couple of emails in the last week of success stories and people talking about how they were successful after listening to the podcast. And I did this hunt and I took your guys' advice and things went well. So that's always kind of reaffirming that we're not just wasting airtime here.
There you go. And maybe after this one, we'll get some success stories about people going out ice fishing.
Yeah.
Thanks to Maxwell here. So
yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, Dalton, you said you had a pretty cool story, or not cool story, but interesting story to get into before we.
Yeah, this one kind of ties into the whole ice fishing theme. I've not done a whole lot of ice fishing. As a matter of fact, very little, as little as possible to this point. I'm interested in getting into it more, but I just haven't gotten into it all that much. But I do play hockey a lot. Well, okay. When I can, not necessarily a lot. So I've been on the ice a fair bit, but not with water underneath of it. But this guy here, Anchorage Ice Skaters Mishap, shows the best rescue might be one you can do yourself. So he was ice skating with a lot of water underneath of him. This article is on the Anchorage Daily News, and this was published on October 25th of this season, so a couple months ago. Article says, drenched and dripping from head to toe on the shore of Westchester Lagoon, Clint Hellander said he wasn't expecting to fall through the ice, but he was ready just in case. Hellander broke through as he ice skated with two friends on a thinly frozen portion of the lagoon Tuesday afternoon in Anchorage. Conditions are a far cry from the midwinter norm, which can draw hundreds to a hot mopped surface of thick ice there. Much of the lagoon remains open water this week. Hellander says, for the last couple of years, we've been actually testing the thinness of the ice, and we've been trying to just get the early season record for skating out there. I believe that happened yesterday. Somebody else beat us. Hellander, age 38, said he has several years of experience skating on the wild ice of lakes and waterways. He understood conditions were marginal, he said. This was about as thin as I would ever go on. The skaters triggered otherworldly echoes as the ice surface was stressed by their strides. As he passed a section of the lagoon where the small island and the shoreline come together along West 15th Avenue, the ice gave way, immediately submerging him. An Anchorage Daily News journalist who was at the lagoon for another reason witnessed the mishap. In all my years of ice skating, wild ice skating, or whatever, I've never fallen in, Hellander said. Hellander said the instance put into practice when he had learned about self-rescue. For a few seconds, that meant trying to remain calm and focused. Other adventure mishaps have taught him that not panicking is very important. He also carried two small picks in order to be able to pull himself out. Without the picks, sometimes called ice claws, Hellander or any skater would have had a hard time finding something to grip on the smooth and slippery surface. He goes on to say, basically, if you fall, you can stab them into the ice and, in theory, climb your way back out. He said his feet touched the bottom of the lagoon as he clambered, but the task was still a challenge. His picks broke off chunks of ice several times before he reached a spot thick enough to support his weight. When he reached it, he kicked his feet back in order to slide across the surface ice, literally like a seal, rather than try to lift himself upward. He goes on to say, I've practiced that before with a dry suit. So he's tried this before. Yeah. That's a good thing. Hellander, who owns a roof cleaning company and is a nursing student, said he's also an experienced alpine climber and backcountry skier with high tolerance for risk. I suppose so. It certainly is wise to be careful, and I would never recommend people take the risks that I have, he said. At least one passerby who watched the situation remained unimpressed. Stupidest thing I've ever seen, a man said to Hellander afterward. Steve Rafuse, Anchorage Park Superintendent, said the city doesn't maintain ice at Westchester Lagoon until it's 16 inches thick. At the same time, I don't think we necessarily have the power to stop folks from going out and getting on any body of water that might be frozen right now, Rafuse said. I'm not sure how you pronounce that name, R-A-F-U-S-E. Rafuse.
Close enough. Yeah.
I refuse to understand. That was a bad one. It's up to people to use and exercise good judgment, he said. Wild ice skating with Nordic skates has grown in popularity in recent years in Alaska. As temperatures dropped this month in South Central, images from backcountry skating locations have populated many social media feeds. Guidelines published by many organizations, including NOAA, U.S. Forest Service, and others, advise that a person on foot needs to be at least on 4 inches of ice. So, very interesting.
I mean, that aligns pretty much with what I've always been told about the ice and everything like that. But it brings up a good point. So, I mean, I'm sure different people have different tolerances for risk, like he said. But for me, I've done a fair bit of ice fishing. I'm not like an ice fisherman by any stretch, but I've lived here since 2009 and I've gotten out over the years. And typically, I mean, man, I gotta say, I wait a long time to get on the ice. I'm like a Thanksgiving kind of guy.
It's smart. It's smart.
Yeah.
Better to be smart than brave.
And that's my kind of always been my thing. It's like, I'm not that itching to go ice fishing yet. Right. You know, it's not that cold. I haven't been stuck inside for that long yet.
Especially this winter, it stayed warm for so long.
This is the first. Did we even hit the negatives in November? I don't think we did. If we did, it was -1.
Yeah, possibly like out in North Pole, like on the Badger Slough or something like that. But like today is the first day of real cold we've gotten all year.
It's about -25 out right now.
My laptop says 24 below right now, and it's been that since I got here this morning.
Right. But and I know people go out earlier than that.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, I guess in your experience, Maxwell, I mean, what's your like? As soon as it gets below 30, like, are you like?
I always say, the ice may be thin, but not as thin as my patience.
Right.
So are you like a 3/4 of an inch kind of guy?
Oh, at least 2.
Yeah.
I will say, being from Illinois, we don't get a lot of ice there. We're lucky to see a foot in some areas, but one of my best stories I've ever had, just dragging a little sled and a bucket and a rod and a hand auger on one of the local chain of lakes there we had, and sitting on about 3.5 inches of ice. And if you've ever been out there in that thin of ice, you'd know if you run across the ice, waves start to form. You start pushing away, displacing water enough to where the ice around you will start kind of cavitating. Maybe not so much crack, but kind of be malleable enough to kind of produce waves across you.
Yeah, no thanks. Thanks.
I'm sitting there on my bucket, and I hear this little. I'm like, what the heck is that? I turn around. Here's a man on a 4-wheeler.
Oh no!
Coming across the lake, making a beeline straight for me, and this is one of my core memories as a child. Sitting there on my bucket, I'm like, this guy's coming right for me. You could see the wake coming off. This guy was pushing 2 to 4 footers across his back, and he's beelining it straight for me. I get up off my bucket, I start waving my hands up in the air. No, go away. Go away. And something that he said that will stick with me for the rest of my life. Right, maybe 100 yards away, he turns off and he goes, "What's the matter? 2 inches can hold a man. 4 can hold a team of horses."
That's it?
And I stood there. I probably was white as snow. I was white as snow. I could just feel the taste in my tongue and feel it in my fingertips. Like, oh my God, that guy's crazy.
I'm sure that laugh haunted your dreams.
And I still hear it. I still hear it to this day.
Man.
But then it got me thinking, man, 2 inches is enough to hold a man.
Right.
So that's about, if I can find 2 inches, less than 10 feet away from the shore, and it's deep enough to hold fish, I'll fish it. I'll fish it.
Do you use one of those those spike poles
at
all?
Spud bar.
Yeah, spud bar.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, I think the earliest I've been up here, I think I got pictures on my phone from October 16th.
Wow.
Fishing on 2 and 3/4 of an inch, maybe 3 inches.
Wow.
Spudding out, 5-inch hole in the ice and fishing for little rainbows around town.
Oh boy.
Right.
Wow. You like ice fishing way more than I do.
I do.
See, so I'm from Kansas. So ice fishing is not a thing.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up with that concept at all. Every once in a while you'd see someone super crazy, because we'll get an ice, you might get a small pond that ices over for 3 days, and you've got 3 days to get out there and try to do some ice fishing just to say you did it. But I never did that. And so when I first got up here to Alaska, I've been up here since 2009, and I was super sketched about going out on ice.
Yeah.
I mean,
as you should be.
Yeah. And I mean, sure, you can tell me it's 2 feet thick in some places in the middle of winter, but I'm not going to believe you. And at least not back then. And so my buddy convinced me. We started using those ice fishing huts out on some of the bigger lakes.
Yeah.
They got the plywood huts. They got wood stoves in them. Really cool stuff. And you can run them for 2 days and then stay overnight, like a camping trip kind of thing in the middle of winter.
So you can have a fire on the ice.
Yeah. You can have a fire in your little hut. Well, the first time I did that, I remember it was the creepiest thing. I was laying in there. I had a little cot set up and I had the fire going, and then we'd been fishing all evening.
Oh yeah.
And then it gets dark and it gets cold and it gets late and it's quiet, and then all of a sudden all you hear is the Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, buddy.
And I'm sitting there and I just envision like that scene in Balto where the ice like flips over. And he's it was freaking me out, man. I mean, and it's not going to go anywhere, but it's like by the time they put those huts out there, it's so thick already.
Yeah,
but
right.
But like, yeah, that was I was super sketched. And then I went out and, I went out to this bonfire one night on a weekend just with some friends, and I didn't know where we were. I was still new to the area. And apparently this bonfire was on a lake, and I didn't even catch it. I didn't catch on. I was thinking about other things at the time.
No idea.
Had other priorities I was focusing on. But and then I realized somebody told me that, and we all have our trucks pulled up around the fire, and we're sitting there. It's like, oh yeah. So after that, I was like, okay, yeah, the ice is pretty strong. We've got diesels and a bonfire going on top of it, and it's not going anywhere. So
but, that's funny. I think my first ice fishing experience, I was a little kid, and we went out to Birch Lake with an old family friend of ours, and there was probably 5 or 6 of us, and my dad pulls up to the lake and keeps on driving and drove out to the ice hut, and I was just losing it.
Yeah.
What do you do?
I don't think I said anything at the time. I at the most, I might have said, "Is it safe to drive out here?" I was probably 10 or 11 years old at the time, and I didn't know. I'd never ice fished before, and he's, "Oh yeah, and people drive their trucks out here all the time." And he said, "Look out there!" Like it seemed like 5-6 miles away. It was probably like a half mile out on the lake. There's like 3 or 4 trucks circled up around a red hut out there, and I just remember thinking, like, just like the scene from Balto, like at any moment,
I know
it's gonna happen. Kaboosh, and we're all just gonna be gone. Gonna be shark food or something. I've never been comfortable in the water. Like on the water is one thing. Like if I'm in a boat, I'm totally fine. I'm out in the islands, and you're operating a boat, and you look at a depth chart, and it's 200-300 feet deep, and that in the back of your mind you go, man, what is down there? Sure hope I never have to see it. But you're on top of it. But when you're on the ice, that ice is your barrier from certain death, your safety net, and that so to me it's always been in the back of my mind. I just don't trust it, and a number of years ago I was out predator calling by myself in the wintertime. It was like December, and I'd made a set. I'd finished my set, and I was leaving, hadn't called anything in, and I walked out to the middle of this little pond to grab my collar and my decoy. And I walked back the way I'd came out, and I went back to where I was sitting, grabbed my little butt pad, and then I walked back out on my tracks to where I'd come in through the marsh, where I knew it was more shallow. And I'd been in this spot before, but as I was walking out, I noticed that all my footprints, and it was pretty dark, but there was a moon and the clouds had kind of blown in, and so I was losing visibility. But I looked down, and I thought, man, this kind of feels weird. I looked down, and all my footprints were dark. So there was overflow under the snowpack there that you can't see just looking out across there. And so immediately, like in my mind, I just started losing it. I thought,
I gotta get off this thing.
Oh no. And I took like 2 more steps and went through. I was so mad, but because I'd been paying attention, I had my little 22 Magnum in my left hand, and I had my collar and my decoy in my other hand. And I was walking with my arms kind of out at an angle, knowing that, I don't know how thick the ice is, because as you know, if there's overflow on top of the ice, then it's anybody's guess how thick it is underneath that. Because if there's overflow, then it's either really, really thick ice that just cracked and it seeped up through from a warm spell, or it's really thin ice right there, and there could be a hot spring underneath there that's kind of keeping a soft spot in the ice.
Well, another thing with that overflow does is not only that, it puts a layer of water on top of the ice. I've been in different lakes and bodies of water where you'll drill through 4 inches of ice, hit a 3-inch water gap, and then hit another foot of ice below that.
Really?
Yeah. It's when you get overflow.
Yeah.
It overflows. You get a big heavy snow. It freezes that little layer of overflow, and the snow on top of it mixes with the water. That insulates the water, and then that freezes over again on top of it. So sometimes when you hit that overflow, it's like you said, it's anybody's guess what is underneath of you.
Wow.
Right? Like you could fall through and be standing in 6 inches of water on top of a foot of ice.
Right. Right.
It's uncommon, but it's not impossible. That stuff's out there.
Yeah. Well, I think that little pond that I was in is only about 20 feet deep, like if that. So I was close to the little reeds there, like the little duck type of habitat that you would see like waterfowl in. And so I had picked that route knowing that was a shallow end.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a fear that I was going to like go through and not be able to get back out, but I had a reasonably decent walk to get back to my truck.
Yeah.
And it was cold. It was like 15, 20 below zero. So I went through it because I had this in my head, because I noticed the overflow and I wasn't sure what the deal was. When I went through, I caught myself with my arms fully extended, and it was kind of a slow fall through. It wasn't like I just boom and just go straight to the bottom. Because at that point, it's really hard to catch yourself in time. You almost have zero time to react. But I felt it like go soft, and then I went in. It happened fast enough that I couldn't jump off of it and dive off to the side. But I went through and kind of up to my knees and something like that. I got most of my legs in the water, and I jumped back out and rolled off to the side, and now I'm covered in snow and whatever. So I just kept on walking and stayed in the reeds and walked back the truck and just absolutely drenched. But my bunny boots were filled with water. They were just about frozen when I got back to the truck. My feet were just freezing.
Oh, man.
Another friend of mine went through the ice, Predator Colin. He had been to that pond dozens of times and done well there, Colin. And one freak day, he was walking back out the same way he always walks back out, and he went through. And he went through like up to his armpits. Ooh. And that spot is a deep spot. Like it is straight down, like where the pike eat the dead folks. Like it's a deep spot. And he went through, and his gun was on his back, so he didn't have really anything to grab onto, like to use for a little stop to keep him from going all the way through. But he caught himself with his elbows and then kind of wrenched himself back up and out, but he was completely drenched. And I remember he had his rifle hanging up in the shower, and he sent me a picture of it, and it was just like completely encased in inches of ice, just completely covered in ice. And like that was years ago, and I remembered that, and I thought, man, it's just better to be safe than sorry. Right. And predator calling on rivers or ice fishing on rivers is just a whole different can of worms. I'm very careful about rivers and that moving water. That's a whole different level of danger.
If you break through that, you ain't just staying where you're at.
No, it'll sweep you under.
Yeah, you're lucky to grab onto something to keep you there.
Right. Yeah.
God forbid you're alone, but if somebody sees you, holding onto the edge of the ice, that's your only chance. Somebody coming up and grabbing onto your hand and ripping you out of there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's a bad deal.
So he mentioned having these spikes on him. So do you guys carry anything like that when you're out on ice, as far as like a self-rescue method?
I have a float suit. I have
float suit? Okay.
Striker Ice full float suit. It's been a couple years since I've gone on any ice. That was as thin as I was talking about earlier. But as far as like myself, or when I like take my buddies or clients out fishing, I keep it like it. I won't take anybody out fishing until it's safe, and I count safe as 8 inches from launch to where I'd like to fish at.
Okay.
But that's a great question. If I'm going out there by myself, 5 inches and under, I really should own a pair of those picks as self rescue, but I keep it extremely light.
Yeah.
Obviously no machine. I do have a couple big flip over shacks. It's a sled. For those of you who don't know, it's a big otter sled with a couple of seats built in on it and a whole tent system that flips over the entire area of which you're gonna fish.
Nice.
And it's super easy to set up. I mean, you pull up, you take the cover off, you flip everything over, bam, you're fishing. No where you can have like popping out all the squares and like a pop-up tent.
I was like the fat fish ones.
Yeah, exactly. No, I have those, and those are awesome.
Right. Yeah.
But
they just take longer to set up.
Yeah. But when I go out on like less than 5 inches, I don't even take an auger. I take a little jet sled, a little bucket with some poles in it. Let's see, my water, my fish finder, and a spud bar in my hand. Like that spud bar stays in my hand, and I actually have about a 6-foot leash on the spud bar tied off to me.
That's
that
a good
way,
idea.
God forbid, I do fall in. What's the first thing you do when you fall in the water? You open up your hands. Crap. I can't tell you how many times I've walked in a river and hit a hole and drop my fillet knife or something in my hand. Oh no! And but that stays tied off to me at the wrist. And I go I take 5 steps, bang, 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 bang on the ice. Okay, walk 5 more steps, bang, bang, bang on the ice. Maybe even every step I take, I'm slamming that as hard as I can through the ice. Right. And in the event that I do fall through, that would be my method of self-rescue.
Right.
Big spud bar.
You got something to span the crack. And
and the float suit. Float suit.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. What about you, Dalton? You carry anything these days?
I
know I don't really.
Yeah,
I should, but I don't.
I have not been on. So if I'm ever going to go out and see, my main experience with ice in the wintertime is predator calling. But the last times that I've been out on rivers to target stuff, I go with a partner.
Yeah.
And we walk close enough together to be fast enough for imminent rescue, but far enough apart that we're not both going to go through if it cracks.
Right.
And that adds a lot of security in my mind. Like, if I've got somebody with me, I know, and not just anybody, I'm not going to go with my 14-year-old buddy that I'm trying to teach how to predator call and take him out on a river ice or even on some questionable lake ice. I'm just not going to do that.
There's plenty of other places you could do to not put yourself at risk.
I can go take him out to a field somewhere where there's no water and have no risk of that. But so if I go out on rivers or lakes that I think might have a chance of having a hot spring feeding into it, then I go with a partner. That's my thing.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I've never carried spikes. Like you said, I probably should. It's one of those things that it doesn't really cost you anything to do it as far as weight penalty or space. You just hang them around your neck and they're just there.
Yeah.
But yeah, just my rule of thumb is I've always got a rifle with me, rifle or shotgun, whatever the set requires. And I walk with that thing in my hand.
Right.
And it's parallel to the ice line, obviously. I'm holding it flat in my hand. And if I go in, then that's my only shot. That's my only chance to get out of there.
Right. An interesting little piece of information I was given at one point in my life, and I'm actually only going to bring this up to encourage somebody either listening or somebody in the room, if you know if this is true or not, I have no idea. But when I had first got our dog, he's about 7.5 now. That tells you how long ago this was. It was from a lady in North Pole, and we were going over what should we dock the tail, because he's a Great Dane, Great Pyrenees mix.
Yeah.
And so apparently there's people that dock the tails for those. I've mostly seen Danes with their tails intact, but that's and ours is, so, and she was a big proponent of not doing anything, leave the dog natural.
Yeah.
And I remember she was talking about the dew claws. And apparently a dog's dew claws, the reason they actually have them is to act kind of like what you're describing those ice picks do, is like if they were to fall into ice or need to be crawling out of something, it gives them like a little extra claw thing to grab on with. And so she was like, she'd never cut off the dew claws on her dogs just in case they needed them at some point. The risk to reward, I guess, of whether they're going to rip it off running through the woods versus when they'll need it, they have it. She said she just left them. And I kind of took that at face value. I didn't really do any more research into that. So I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that, but
no,
I hadn't heard of that. But I've always wondered what in the world that's for. Like, why do they have an extra one up there?
Yeah. And it kind of makes sense. So if anybody's listening to this show and has the answer to that, feel free to write in. I'm extremely curious if that's like accurate or if it's just like a.
Well, and I suppose, do all dogs have it?
I'm pretty sure. Actually, ours has 2 on one of his hind legs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a Pyrenees trait, I think, is a double dew claw.
I suppose it could be like a climbing thing too, is if they're on steep stuff, because their feet don't bend and contort like our hands and feet can. They don't have the knuckles and the articulation in their joints. So if they're just trying to use their pads, and that's not going to do anything if they're going up something steep, so they've got those dew claws. I wonder if that is what that's for.
Yeah, because I know most people just get them removed, because then you don't run the risk of them ripping it off if they jump over a log or something like that, because it's like connected to an artery, right? So they'll bleed out, and there's really no way to stop it.
Oh, really?
But they'll die from it if they rip their dew claw.
That's exactly why like most hunters remove those things. As far as like all the like working dogs I've worked with, that's like a huge box to check, if you will, in like getting a hunting dog or working with a dog.
I did not know that.
Are they neutered? Is the dew claws removed?
Right,
what does their tail look like?
Well, we can thank that famous show host. Have your pet spayed and neutered. What was that? Was that the host of Jeopardy or something like that?
Probably.
Yeah, something like that.
Back when it first started becoming an issue.
Yeah, he always said that. And remember, have your pet spayed and neutered. Now he's gone, and that's his legacy.
There we go.
And here we are.
Carried forward on the Northern Hunter.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's take a quick break, and then we'll actually get into you, Maxwell.
All right.
All right, folks. We all know that one of the most common mishaps in hunting is damage to your rifle scope. Last year, I found the solution to that problem with the Stealthy Hunter rifle cover. It wraps around your scope and actions securely to protect it from getting knocked off of zero or even severely damaged. Stealthy Hunter also has a glassing pad and a wide variety of supplements for the outdoorsman, such as protein powder, CBD products, turmeric, and gut health supplements. They also make a lightweight trauma kit weighing in at just 14 ounces that includes everything you need and nothing you don't for all of your backcountry medical emergencies. To shop all of their equipment and supplements, go to stealthyhunter.com and enter the discount code at checkout, The Northern Hunter, to save on your order today. All Stealthy Hunter equipment is proudly made in the USA.
All right. So you had mentioned earlier you're not from Fairbanks, Alaska.
No, that's correct.
Where are you from?
The Chicagoland of Illinois, kind of a northwest suburb.
Oh,
gotcha.
Which gang?
Little town. Oh, Northwest, son. Represent up in here, man. You heard?
Sorry. I couldn't help myself. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So Chicago area.
Yeah, a little suburb called Palatine.
Okay.
Any of my friends happen to be listening to this thing. But yeah, go Palatine.
So born down there.
Yep.
Were your folks from down that way too?
Yep. My dad was raised in the same area, Chicagoland area. Actually at a little town called Waukegan, a little rougher town than the northwest suburbs, a little closer to Chicago, but a lot closer to the water of Lake Michigan. When I say water,
okay.
And that's kind of where he was raised. Fishing for salmon and trout on Lake Michigan. And then once I came of age, I mean, even when I was as a baby, he had this little basket built on his boat for me that I would go out in and be able to fish with him out there ever since I was a little tyke,
Yeah, that's awesome.
Nice.
So your dad was big into the outdoors then?
Yeah, he was probably one of the big outdoorsmen in the Chicagoland area that I could think of. I mean, nobody that we met in our circles could really shake a finger to him. Big hero in my eyes, but yeah, he traveled, all across the Midwest to hunt, fish. And once I came of age or I was either out of school, he would take me along those trips.
Yeah.
Nice.
We go all the way over to Lake Erie, Ohio, fish over there for walleyes, all sorts of different things in there. Grandfather was a Native American, hailed from California, and then migrated over to South Dakota. So we would go there every summer to spread his ashes on all the places. He would take my dad to go fish. That was kind of like our summer deal. We'd get in the RV and take off over there. But from there, oh gosh, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, the Dakotas, let's see, Iowa, Minnesota. Yeah, anywhere in between those places, Kansas, Arkansas. We would bop all around chasing fins or feathers.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So not a whole lot into the big game side, just mostly like waterfowl or upland bird hunting and then fishing.
Yeah, we did a little bit of deer hunting. We had a friend who had a piece of property down in southern Illinois. That's where my grandmother lived.
Okay.
When she was alive. So we would go down there for the holidays, and that was like the big, holiday thing to do.
Right,
Thanksgiving, Christmas, we'd be going down there to go deer hunt with either a bow or a shotgun. No rifle seasons in Illinois.
Yeah.
One of those, just those
I think same in Ohio, right?
weird states.
Or no, you can use straight wall. Straight wall.
Yeah, straight wall.
Straight wall or slug for
Yeah.
Ohio.
Right.
Yeah.
I think some muzzleloader too.
Yeah.
Yep.
The southern half of Michigan is that way as well, I believe.
Okay.
I think it's straight wall below a certain line, and then you can use anything.
Oh,
north of
really?
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder why there's that divider.
Population density, I'd bet.
Interesting.
Yes. I think that's 100%
So
right.
I've got kind of a tangent question here. I'm not from that part of the country. I've got family in Ohio. We've actually got several listeners that are from Ohio that my grandparents know, and that my granddad owns a barbershop down there, and small farmer town barbershop, and so we've got some listeners down that way. But I've always wondered about the Great Lakes. Everybody in the Midwest and in kind of that area of the country talks about the Great Lakes.
Well, they are great.
They're pretty great.
They are pretty great.
They are great. I've seen them. I've been to a couple of them. I probably couldn't even tell you which ones as a kid, just going down there to visit family. But my question is ownership. Like certain people from certain parts of the state, like people from Michigan call Lake Michigan their lake. Ohio calls what?
Erie. That'd be Erie.
Erie.
Yeah.
Okay.
At least the southern part of Erie.
But there are other folks from other parts of the Midwest that also feel like because they're adjacent to another state that is adjacent to that lake, that's their lake, right? So is there like a sense of local pride to being able to have direct access to the Great Lakes?
100%. 100%. I had no idea where you're going with the question, but 100%. The Great Lakes, and really all I could talk about mainly is Lake Michigan, just because it's a stone's throw for me, 45-minute drive.
Okay.
Boom, I'm right there.
Yeah.
But that was my lake. That was my that was my lake. I grew up fishing out there. Like I said, ever since I was a little tyke, my dad had a basket for me to sit in.
So do all the local ponds and smaller lakes just kind of get thrown to the wayside, or is there not much for other local water?
No, not for me. There wasn't. I fished a lot. Any little body of water I had around my neck of the woods area, I fished. It did kind of threw them to the wayside because I was exposed to this extreme class of sport fishing. Trolling for salmon and trout, where we would pull up access of 30-pound king salmon or 25-pound lake trout. I've got a couple 20-pound brown trout on the wall.
Wow.
I've smacked off a 20-pound steelhead with the net. I'm still losing sleep over to this day. But all those other lakes that kind of held like bluegills and crappie, even like little small populations of catfish.
What about walleye?
There is plenty of lakes in the local area that contain walleye. I'm talking, there's like 3 lakes just within walking or biking distance of me when I was a kid that I would go play on, that I knew that held bass or like crappie, bluegill. I would ride my bike before I got a license. I'd ride my bike and I'd take my old football water jug to the bait shop and have them put a couple dozen fathead minnows in it, ride it back, keep it in my basement where it was cool, put an aerator to it, and then put them in a smaller bottle, by a half dozen or so, ride out to the whatever lake I wanted to fish that day, catch bass on live minnows on a bobber and little crappies doing it that way too, perch, especially perch.
Yeah.
But once I got a truck, I was able to kind of go out. We have a place called the Chain O Lakes.
Okay.
There in the Midwest.
Chain of lakes.
The chain of lakes. Yeah. It's just a chain of lakes.
Get the apostrophes in there. And
Yep, exactly. Yeah. But that held a pretty good population of perch and walleye that we would go after.
So how big is a big walleye? Like in terms of inches in length, inches in girth, and then also weight?
I would say if we're fishing on Lake Erie,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like the walleye capital of the world, you can ask a lot of people that, and that'd be like where you would go to catch a mondo walleye.
Okay.
Anything pushing like 28 to 30 inches, looking at about like 6 to 7 pounds. That's a tank of a walleye.
And how big around are they? Are they real fat fish?
A little more narrow, if you will. But man, they fight like dogs, and they got really sharp teeth, like a pike. I don't know if you've ever pulled a walleye out, but they got just the craziest gnarly looking mouth on them, and that beautiful gold plated armor that they have on the sides. If you grabbed a walleye, you'd know. Just they're so scaly, and you feel like any one of those scales, if it rubbed you the wrong way, it would give you a gash.
Just open you right up. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But
interesting.
But we've been out on Lake Erie in the wintertime. It'd be almost spring for here, but wintertime, and being able to go out and catch these 30 walleyes through the ice.
Wow.
And it just, we used to pound them. But Lake Erie, it doesn't freeze up every single year. And it's just one of those states that doesn't get as cold, obviously, as up here. They might see, single digit negatives. But with that being such a big lake, they get a lot of like straight north and straight south winds. Heck, me and my dad were out on one year where we were probably fishing around like maybe a foot of ice within a half a mile of the shoreline.
Okay.
Let's call it 30 feet of water. About 5 or 10 miles to our east, there was a crack that was about a quarter mile long. And at one point we had such a bad south wind, it kind of blew the crack open to about a couple feet wide, and a couple miles long at this point.
Wow.
People were driving their machines out there and laying plywood across it, making a designated crossing point to it.
Whoa.
Well, they had one day the wind kicked up out of the south, blowing 25, 30 miles an hour, and it actually broke this quarter mile block of ice and stranded close to 50, 60 people out there with machines, tents, all their equipment. People were getting airlifted out of there, not bringing any equipment back, leaving it all on the ice. They were just there for the people.
Wow.
My father and I are sitting there in our tent. Now, we're not even on the dangerous section of the lake, but my father and I are sitting there in our little tent. We heard, oh, what's that? Oh, look, it's a helicopter. Wow, check that out. This helicopter comes and kind of buzzes us, a little bit, kind of gets in our little area of operation. And we're like, wow, check him out. Oh, wow, cool. He's giving us a little show. And then, he buzzes off for a few minutes. A little bit later, here he comes back. And this time he's not giving us a show. He is on top of our tent. Me and my dad are holding onto the walls of this thing, trying to keep it on the ice. Whoa, what the heck, man? And takes off again. And my dad's like, what the heck is that guy's problem? He comes back and does it again. And my dad looks at me like, maybe we should leave. But I think he's trying to tell us something, but he doesn't want to land.
Yeah.
But he's just trying to tell us something.
He's afraid to land.
When we get back to the little boat launch, there's a whole parking lot full of people. And people are asking us, how did you get off? How did you get off? I'm like, oh, we're fishing over by Sand Point.
Yeah.
What do you mean? He's like, what's going on? What's going on? Like, you weren't part of the people that got stranded out there? What? No, what happened? And it wasn't until when we got back to the launch when we heard about this huge fiasco going on.
Wow.
And all these
did you feel anything while you were out there?
No. This is miles from
away.
us. Yeah, this is miles from us. And it was just a piece of ice getting blown off and just drifting out. Blew the crack, a quarter mile wide.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
and to the point of how many little ponds and lakes that there are around there. My wife is from the other side of the lake. She's from Michigan side. So I've spent some time around there. I married a Grand Haven girl, for anybody from Michigan listening. And it amazes me. I mean, one, the first time I saw Lake Michigan, that thing is massive.
That thing's big.
And I didn't realize, so I went down there. We had planned a trip to go down, and I was going to ask her dad, for her hand and all that jazz. And
aren't you a gentleman?
Oh yeah, traditionalist. So
attaboy.
So
I did the same thing.
Yeah. So we're hanging out on the beaches. It's like early fall for down there, and there was just something wrong. There was something wrong, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And what it was is every time I've been next to a body of water that big, where I can't see the other side, and it just looks, there's sandy beaches, there was no salt smell. That's what was wrong. That's what my mind was catching on to something was off. Like something just feels weird about this because it's like you see ocean, but you don't smell ocean. And it's like, and it's weird. There's waves like the ocean. It's crazy, man.
Yeah.
But there is so many little lakes around too. I mean, it's such a wetland around there. Really, I mean, there's like bayous and stuff like all over.
Lots of marshes.
So is there a lot of waterfowl in there then?
Oh yeah. That's one of the things that I grew up chasing too. My dad had a little waterfowl lease, and it was backed up to, we had probably about 20, 30 acres of woodland to hunt too for deer that we would frequent when the geese kind of went away. But we had a really good waterfowl lease, big soybean, corn. Sometimes they'd turn it into like winter wheat. And with actually like some flooded timbers behind the one hill we hunted on, and a little pond in front of the hill. So not only did like the flooded timbers hold a variety of species like wood ducks, sometimes even like pintails, but the pond would hold, mallards, gadwalds, kind of any, other type of waterfowl. And then of course the fields where we shot our Canadas at.
Yeah. Canada's gooses.
Yes,
Canada's
gooses, man. Those are Canada's gooses.
Canada's gooses are royalty. Canada's pride.
Yeah, they taste good.
So then, including Canadian geese, with all the other waterfowl, what was the best waterfowl meat that you ever had?
In Illinois.
Yeah,
in Illinois. It had to be those like fatty mallards we would get in.
Even better than Canadians.
I would say so. And it's just everybody's got a preference. Man.
Yeah, sure.
Of course, like I know you had somebody else on here not too long ago talking about cranes. Cranes.
Yeah.
And now I'm up here, and I'm able to be fortunate enough to guide for those. And back in Illinois, there was no season on cranes.
Oh, and really?
When we saw a crane cranes, it would be a crane.
Do they just not frequent that area very much?
Not a huge, not a huge migratory path for them.
Yeah.
But there would be days where we'd be sitting out there, and if you've ever waterfowl hunted, you look to the sky all day long.
Yeah.
And, wait, what's this right here? Hey, right here. Here it comes. Like, man, it's a crane.
Yeah.
And now being up here, it took a while for me to be like, oh man, it's a dang crane.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a crane. Like, oh yeah, baby. Like we can shoot those here.
Yeah.
But then it was like a nuisance, and I remember my dad sitting there in the blind, being pterodactyl. Like, oh yeah. But we weren't allowed to hunt them there, and but now when I go back, I kind of look for them a little bit, and of course I've got this big lanyard of calls, and the guys that I used to hunt with as a kid, and I go out with when I do go back home, I look at them and I say, "Watch this." I bust out that crane call, and I get them to turn their heads a little bit and come give us a little look, and they think it's just the coolest thing ever. Like it went from like, oh, these dang nuisance bird, getting my hopes up thinking it's a goose flying around,
right.
To now, oh look, this kid can freaking get him close to us. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Well, because they cross down more western, right? And they come in mostly in like Nebraska and whatnot, the Dakotas.
And the Great Plains.
Yeah, Great Plains. Okay, yeah. I don't remember. I mean, I guess I wasn't really looking for them when I was growing up, but I don't really remember a ton of them down there getting as far south as Kansas. They probably do, though. I mean,
interesting.
It'd be interesting to look into.
Interesting. So what was your preferred weaponry of choice for waterfowls?
I was able. So when I was a kid, I think my first shotgun I ever had was a little Mossberg 500 20 gauge, and my dad, being the guy he was, he wanted to set me up for everything, so he got the little field combo.
Yeah.
The field and whatever, the field and slug combo. That's what it was. So it came with a bird barrel and a rifled slug barrel with the little Picatinny rail on the top to put a scope on.
There you go.
So that's what I would be shooting waterfowl and deer with ever since, I was probably around 12. My dad got me this Remington 1180/70 20 gauge, like my first semi-automatic shotgun I had.
Yeah.
And then I ended up using that to hunt a lot of dove. We had a good dove season. So doves and pigeons and small waterfowl, like the smaller ducks I'd use in like teal season.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until my dad always, he had a Beretta Extrema 12 gauge. And he had this thing for so long, and he's like, you know what, Maxwell, I think it's about time, like, you get something nice. And he goes, here, buddy, like, here, you can have mine, and I'm going to go get a new one.
And he went out and bought a Benelli or something.
No, he goes out and buys a brand new Beretta Extrema, like A400 plus, the baddest freaking shotgun you could ever have. And then, let's see, the choke in my shotgun was completely frozen into. Never really got taught that we're supposed to take them out, lube them up a little bit, and put them back in. I didn't even think that there was like guys change their chokes out. Like, well, yeah, like sometimes we hunt close and sometimes we hunt far. And I'm like, nah, man, like you should be a killer anywhere and like you should be able to like shoot at 15 yards and you should be able to hit something at, effectively, 50, 60 yards with something.
So you're a full choke guy.
Oh, I'm an extra full choke guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll split things in half at 10 yards and drop things like a bad habit at 70. So, but that, I got this, I got a brand new one. I just looked up the serial number. I've had it I've had it for 11 years. And I think in those 11 years, I've hunted, 10 waterfowl seasons with it and 4 snow goose conservation seasons with it. And for those of you who don't know if I've ever snow goose hunted before, usually that's like a springtime conservation hunt. The snow geese, if you've ever seen a flock of snow geese, they travel by the thousands thousands. And when they come through in the springtime, when all the farmers are trying to plant their crops, they come through and absolutely eviscerate agricultural lands. And so they open up a conservation season with them. So that's the use of electronic calls, unplugged shotguns, even extension. We buy extension tubes for our shotguns. Buddy. My dad had a custom made. It wasn't an AR-12, but it was a custom-made shotgun that could take a 25-round drum magazine in it.
America.
And so we would use those electronic calls, spreads that would consist of 5,000 silhouette socks or full-body decoys that we would use.
Really?
And no limits. Like you could shoot as many of them as you could drop.
So what's your best day of that?
I think one of our best days was probably out in South Dakota. You'd pull in at like 2 a.m. and like completely pitch black, and you got 4 hours of work ahead of you setting up 5,000 freaking decoys, man.
My goodness.
And in a day, we'd hunt for a day because you put all this work in. Into setting them up. I'm not going to hunt for 45 minutes and take them down.
Yeah.
I think the best day I ever had out there was like 127 between 5 guys.
What, you have a bump stock on
you'd walk out with a case of shells.
Man.
Yeah. I think that was one of our best days. But there's guys who can shoot way more than that on other days. But some days it just takes a lot of scouting. You find, and it's not hard to find those things in the spring. Like you drive around, oh, there's a sea of snow geese out in this field.
Follow the shadow as they're flying.
You go knock on the farmer's door. Hey, see, you got a problem in your field out here. We're the problem solvers. And it's just sometimes it just takes a little money, or hey, I got some deer sausage and some $50. Like, would you mind go hunt these places. So it wasn't hard to get access, but from what I hear now, it's a lot harder to get access in the Midwest for those types of hunts.
Yeah, it's
very interesting.
I've heard it's getting that way. So,
yeah,
unfortunately, but
yeah.
So you so I kind of ruined the way you got to Alaska, I'm sure, with my intro, but
no, of course.
So at what point did you decide to join the military, and were you trying to get stationed up here, or was it a lucky guess or lucky?
That's a great question. I answer the question the same way every time. In high school, I think it was like sophomore, junior high school, when all the Modern Warfare games came out, I was like, oh yeah, I want to do that, run around and be a grunt. And then I joined the military off my senior year of high school.
Okay.
I actually spent my last summer. So I deckhanded on charter boats in on Lake Michigan up until I was 15 to 18.
Okay. Nice.
Me and my dad would fish all these tournaments. They had like salmon and trout tournaments on Lake Michigan, and we'd come through and just wipe the floor with some of these people. And it wasn't until like one day some guy came over to me and was like, "Hey buddy, you want to work for some money?" And I was like, "Sweet." So I got my learner's permit. I was able to drive. I would drive there like after football games on Friday night, get there at like 2 a.m, wake up at 5:30, rig the whole boat up, go out fishing, and then come back and do that for a weekend to make some money on my weekends. But
nice.
My last summer, I got to just do that all summer. I worked on a variety of different boats between the Waukegan area, Winthrop Harbor in Illinois, and the Kenosha area in Wisconsin. After that, I joined the Army, went to basic. And for anybody who's ever been in the military, you go through this place called MEPS, Military Entry Processing Station. And then they sit you down, and then they're like, "Where do you want to go?" And, the only place I've ever heard of was Fort Carson, Colorado. And I thought, Colorado, outdoors. Yeah, that'd be right up my alley. So, of course, that was my number one pick. And then I picked like Fort Riley, Kansas, because that was like the next closest place to home. And then I'm sitting there scratching my head on like the third, because they give you a third option. And I think the guy, if I remember it correctly, the guy was like, "What about Alaska?" And I was like, "They got a military base in Alaska?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Write Fort Wainwright down. Write Fort Wainwright down." And I was like, "Okay."
You poor guy.
I write it down. And, months later, I'm done with basic. They get you in this little group, and they slap a paper on the wall with your name and where you're going, like where you got orders to. And I remember like walking up to my name and looking at like, Fort Wainwright, Alaska. I didn't even know they had a military base in Alaska.
Like, totally forgot.
Totally forgot. That's what I signed up for 3 months prior.
That's awesome.
So then I came up here. And the passion of hunting and fishing just follows you where you go, as you know.
What month was that you came up here?
It would have been December.
So you had the same experience I did, coming straight from Georgia to Alaska.
Yeah. And what's funny is, I've did so much stuff in the cold back in Illinois and the Midwest. I already had a pair of bunny boots, and I told my parents to bring them down to basic for me, because I'm like, I'm going to Alaska, man.
Yeah,
like I need some nice boots. So I get these things, and if you're a military guy in Alaska, you'd know, like you see some guy walking around in bunny boots on post, you're like, oh, what a loser. Right. So I immediately show up thinking I'm the man. And all these guys are like, dude, what a poser, man. And I'm like, man, you guys don't even know how awesome these things are. Like, you just don't like them because they're heavy and they look weird. But I actually use these things. So and then the spring came. I wasn't going to pay the money to get a hunting or fishing license or a hunting license yet, like, 'cause it costs, $100 bucks. But I got a fishing license, and I didn't have a vehicle yet, so I just kind of fished all like the little local ponds on post. Whatever thing was stocked in there, I'd go cast for. And then the fall rolled around, and we had an NCO who didn't really care for me too much. And I'm just like, hey, Sarn, I hear you're a duck hunter. I hear, would you take me out duck hunting? Would you take me out duck hunting? I've got the stuff, I've got my gun. I'll pay whatever, and I'll get legal, but will you take me duck hunting? And he's like, no. It's bad to fraternize with the lower enlisted. No. I'm like, well, screw you, man. So through like the grapevine, I kind of found some of the spots where, oh, well, yeah, he took me duck hunting. I'm like, oh, this BS, man. Like, come on, you're going to take this dude out hunting, but not me, bro. So I just kind of found some places to duck hunt around here. And at that point, I got a vehicle. I bought this little 10-foot skiff and 24 decoys from this guy who doesn't even duck hunt. And when I bought these decoys, he had Ziploc bags filled with rocks tied to 550 cord on these decoys as weights for this thing. Like, that's a first. That's the first I've ever seen. So I re-rig all these decoys, get some new stuff. I got my vehicle. I got some buddies who were into it. We're able to go out to this body of water and start, duck hunting. And that's just like what I was all about when I first got up here, was duck hunting. Then fall, as it does every year, it turns into winter. Yeah. And then there's ice. So then I just started. Once I had a vehicle, I bought an auger, bought a tent, and a little box of fishing rods I found on Marketplace from some dude who was PCSing.
There you go. Yeah. That's the best way to find stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
That is the greatest part about Marketplace in Fairbanks. Yeah. Find all the guys PCS and need to sell.
Yeah.
Leaving in 2 weeks.
We have a tiny town. Well, I mean, I'll say it's a tiny city.
Sizable.
It's a sizable town or small city.
Yeah.
With 2 military bases one on either side. You got an Army base and an Air Force base.
Yeah.
And so there's always people coming and going, buying gear,
with
selling
turnover
gear.
of at minimum, like
3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
2 to 4 years, I should say.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. 2 to 4 years between the Air Force and the Army. And so there's always stuff for sale. Need to sell. Motivated to sell.
Yeah. Like, leaving in 2 weeks. Need to get rid of. We'll take bottom dollar.
All right. You got yourself a 30-06. I'll give you $15 for it.
Exactly.
I've gotten some crazy good deals from Marketplace.
Oh yeah, me too.
People trying to get out of Dodge and like, all right, well, thanks for your service. I'll give you $50.
That was a slap of the way out of the state. Yeah, I could tell you almost half of my tents I acquired now have come from dudes leaving who need to get rid of it. And they paid pennies on the dollar for it because they're just like,
well, and if they can't get rid of it, then they end up spending way more money than that just to transport it, or they're just going to throw it in the dump. You find stuff in the dump all the time for free.
Oh yeah,
there's all kinds of hidden gems around this town.
Transfer site goon, man.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I was at the transfer site. I'm not going to say which one, like 3 weeks ago. And I pulled in there and I was just getting rid of some garbage, and I pulled in, looked across the lot. There were 2 other folks at the transfer site. One of them was a gal in like a full parka snowsuit, and she was up under like the little covered area where they put like the old grills and dishwashers and washing machines and junk like that. And she was going through some stuff in a box. Then there was a little Subaru, like an early 2000s Subaru, packed with junk.
Oh yeah,
like the classic dumpster diver vehicle for Fairbanks. It's either a 90s Chevy truck with an 8-foot bed that's full of junk that's dumpster diving, or it's a Subaru packed to the gills. And this was a Subaru, and this was a guy. And I don't think they were together, but I looked over at the Subaru, and the guy stands up out of a dumpster, and I hear him across the parking lot. Yes. And I kind of pay attention for a second. And then he climbs out of the dumpster and he's got a gun in his hand. Score!
It's hot, but okay.
He found a rifle. And so I pulled around to try to get a look at him as I made my U-turn to get out of there. And the lady pulled up a gun out of the box. Somebody was dumping some stuff.
Oh, those have definitely been used to kill somebody.
And I thought, man, should I call the troopers? I ended up calling them, and I said, hey, it doesn't matter really who I am. I got nothing to do with this. But I just left this transfer site, and there's two folks in there that just
found guns,
just yanked out 2 guns within about 2 minutes of each other. You need to go check this out. And they're like, all right, well, I'll see if I can send somebody over there. But
yeah, I doubt they did.
Yeah,
but
I don't know.
To clarify this story for anybody that's not from Alaska or spent any time here, I think it's a uniquely Alaskan experience because it hasn't been anywhere else I've lived.
Yeah,
is transfer stations.
Yeah,
transfer sites. So what that is there's not, in majority of the Fairbanks area, at least where we live, there's no trash trucks. There's no garbage trucks. There's a few commercial companies that will do commercial dumpsters.
Yeah.
There's a few neighborhoods where I think like the communities come together to get trash trucks to come by and collect their trash.
It's like a little HOA situation.
Right. Yeah. Like neighborhood by neighborhood. But the vast majority of the Fairbanks area does not have like a standard truck route for trash trucks. So when you have your garbage, you just pile it out on the front porch or in a little tote or something like that in the front yard until it's full. And then you throw that in the back of the truck and you haul it to these sites. I think there's 7 of them somewhere, something like that. Maybe more.
I've never even counted them.
But they're scattered around the outsides of Fairbanks, and they're literally you just roll into this gated area. It's this huge paved area, and it's just got dumpsters all the way around the outside.
Mine's not paved.
Oh, really?
No.
Oh, yeah. Ours is paved.
Oh.
Yeah, get good.
Yeah.
That's where that's where you find the high dollar stuff.
I know.
Right, that's where you find
that's why I go to that one. It's on the other side of town for me.
That's where you find the name brand George Foreman grills.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My grill actually did come from the transfer site. That's funny.
Oh, yeah.
But it's a 4-burner propane.
Really?
It was in great shape too.
Nice.
Yeah. I don't know why they dropped it off there.
Yeah.
But so in addition to the dumpsters being there, they have this canopy at all of them, and it's just keeps the snow off of stuff, and anything somebody wants to get rid of that they think somebody else might be able to use, they put under the canopy.
Yeah.
That's where I found my grill and a bunch of other stuff actually. But then people will put treadmills under there, stoves, refrigerators.
You always
anything.
find an elliptical.
Yeah, always an elliptical.
There's a resident elliptical at every single transfer site.
Well, and if you do
all those
see
Pelotons took over that market.
I know. Yeah. And if you do see a refrigerator there, it probably doesn't have a power cord anymore. But
somebody grabbed no copper
and no copper wire.
Exactly. But so that's what he's talking about when he says transfer site. It's just it's where we all take our trash and then recyclables.
At least of 2 of them that I've been at recently, just being at different places, there are junker cars there too.
Oh yeah, you're not supposed to do that, but people still do.
Over in the corner, people just bring a car in there and leave it, and of course it is stripped, clean,
chop shop style.
Seats are sawzalled out of that thing.
My buddy found he went there. This was years ago now, but he went there and there were 2 like kid-sized dirt bikes there.
Oh really?
And he grabbed them up and they still worked. It was just somebody that like their kids had grown up and outgrown them or something like that. And so they dropped them off there, and he had 2 kids that they fed.
Wow.
So the dude got his kids dirt bikes from the transfer site for free.
Wow.
So great part about living here.
Just for personal dignity, we don't call them the dump. We call them transfer sites.
Yes. I used to call it the mall.
I used to call it Saturday morning shopping.
There you go.
Honey, you want to go to the store? It's warm out today.
Right.
It never hurts, like while you're putting your trash out.
Just take a look.
Yeah, take a spin around the block, man.
Right.
Take a look.
There's some good stuff there.
Yeah.
So anyway, we went on this huge loop to get back to you bought some stuff off Marketplace.
Yes. So, but yeah, that's how I came to acquire like the first stuff, and I still have like my little box. Like living in the barracks, I lived in room 301. So it was the top floor. And the first room, so top floor, farthest from the door.
Yep.
And there is days where me and my buddies would be going fishing. So I would have an auger, propane auger across my back, this bucket, this little box with wheels on it, and a tent draped up across the box, and I'd have to walk it all the way down to the stairwell, down 3 flights of stairs, past the desk. And of course, the dude sitting at the desk is like, going fishing?
Here's your sign.
Yeah, here's your sign.
Nah.
Like, nah, man, I just like to carry this stuff. And we would go fish for anybody who knows the local area, like Tanana Lakes, Chino Lakes, and we would just go catch the little stalker salmon and trout. And that was always a blast. And I used to love just keeping them because those things are like little veal, man, like the veal of salmon, those little stalker salmon. And for anybody who says they don't taste good, they can get bent because I think they taste just fine. And that's how I kind of got started ice fishing up here.
Yeah.
And then started once I got a little bit more versed in, there's other lakes here outside of like 15 minutes. Like, that's when I started really like broadening my horizons and buying some little more upgraded equipment. Once I got out of the military, I had my own place and a more property to store a lot of the stuff I would need. Because before I had, like I said, I had a propane auger that I was not supposed to have.
I was going to say, I'm surprised they let you have that in there.
I got stopped.
You can't even have a hot plate in those things most of the time.
Exactly. Or toaster, right? I get stopped walking to my room with this propane auger and the bottle. Thank God I took the bottle out of it, and it was sitting in this box. And some big rank guy comes up. He's like, "What's that?" I'm like, "It's a auger," and he's like, "You're not supposed to have that in your room, right?" I'm like, "Well, what am I not supposed to have?" And you're like, "That thing takes propane?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "You're not supposed to have that in your room." I'm like, there's no bottle in it. And he's like, okay. And little did he know, this freaking box I have has got like a half a dozen bottles in it. So keeping that stuff organized in my room was just a pain, man.
Yeah. That was the only good thing when I was living on base. I lived in 1001. For years. I mean, years. And that was before the remodel. So
really bad.
But they had the storage cages in the basement, so you didn't have to carry everything to the third floor.
Oh, man, I would have killed for that. No, there were days in the barracks. I lived at 3207, one of the nicer, newer ones. There was a common area down like right in the desk area, and there was a little place you walked into. It had tile as opposed to carpet. And it was like a little wash bay for dishes and a couple bathrooms and like a communal shower. Like we had ones in our own room, but I remember
sounds like a fish cleaning station to me.
Exactly, buddy. Exactly. So I would go down there. I'd fill up the sink. I love it. I'd fill up the sink with frozen fish like pike and little stocked salmon and trout. And I tell the guy at the desk, "Hey, dude, I'm gonna set up my tent in here so it can dry out, and I'll be back in I'm gonna go change. I'm gonna be back in 30 minutes while my fish thaw in the sink. Just keep an eye on it for me, will you?" And I'd come back down. He's like, "Man, you got to get that thing out of here. That thing smells like cigarettes and fish, man. Get that thing out of here." And I'm like, "Okay." So I'd fold it all up and haul it back up, and then I'd come down and process all my fish and throw it down the garbage disposal. But the poor thing about the garbage disposal is that thing's 20 years old, so it leaks. It leaks onto the freaking tile floor. So after I'd be done cleaning all my fish, I'd walk out of there and I'd look back and I'd see scales and like the bubbly slime receding toward the drain in the middle of the floor, and I'd be like, "Peace, brother. Like, I am out of here, man." Like,
yes.
I'd be gone. Man, I was a menace, dude. I was a straight up menace in that place.
Whoever was on CQ that night was mad.
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I think we just broke the laughing record on this podcast.
Yeah.
Wow. Awesome.
We dealt, man.
Yep.
You got
to make do.
Yeah, I broke down those walls, dude. I broke down those walls, man. Nothing was keeping me from having a good time. So.
That's hilarious.
So how far out would you say your adventures took you while you were in the service? Like as far as like finding fishing spots and stuff like that. Like were you going like hours? Did you start like just as soon as you were able to just start going as far out as you could, or?
Oh yeah. Gosh, we would get flown to Anchorage and stuff. And even like then I'd be looking around like, oh, there's a little body of water. Like, there's some fish and stuff. And like out behind Eielson, we'd have to drive the strikers in there and you look over like Munchu Lake or Gravel Pit, one through a million out there.
No kidding.
And then if for anybody who doesn't know this listening in the Alaska area, on the Fish in Game website, you could just Google this. I use it every single weekend just to double check. You can go on and Google the Alaska Lake Database, and it will show you almost every single body of water in Alaska. And there's a little key. It has like green, yellow, and red dots. Green dots are lakes that have been stocked within the last couple of years. Yellow dots are lakes that haven't been stocked in years. Red dots are lakes that have probably never been stocked, and some of them are considered dead lakes, but do not let that deter you from going and checking them out. Like I wouldn't say make a weekend, like I'm going to go to this lake, but
right.
If you're out and about and you happen to know like, oh, there's a red dot lake, go fish it. I know there's plenty of lakes down in between here and Tok that have red dots on them. That I've seen people catch monster lake trout out of. Really? Pike, impressive size char. South of the Alaska Range, of course, rainbow trout. Massive size grayling. Don't ever let like a red dot lake deter you from going there and just trying it out.
Sure.
Now, so stocking fish, are they breed, right? Like once they're released, or are they sterile?
Nope, they're sterile.
Are they sterile? Okay.
They're released. I can't remember the exact name for it, but yes, sterile would be.
Okay, so once they're in there, that's the amount of fish, and that's it. Because I was thinking about it in my head. I couldn't remember if they were sterile or not, but it was like if they haven't been stocked in a while, I was curious if that was just they reached their population and they were stable now or not. Like, it's kind of. I wonder why they release sterile fish. That seems kind of interesting. You'd think they'd want to make a sustainable population, but
they don't want to eat the lake out. So if they can put a certain amount of fish in that lake, and let's say they kind of take into consideration the takeout of, you and me or the guides or so on and so forth.
Oh, yeah.
They can put enough fish in that lake to where they won't reproduce. So they won't have to really necessarily manage it to that extent.
Right.
Because even with these lakes that do get, that don't get stocked, there is some sort of, managing that goes into them.
Okay.
It might be not the millions of dollars it takes to, produce these hatchery fish and release into there. Right. But there is some sort of eye kept on those lakes. Gotcha. So if they can release a certain amount of fish into the lake, and let's say these little stockers last, at max 3 years, they're gonna think, okay, like so and so guides are out there. Let's say we have a population of like 1,000 people otherwise go out and fish it. And let's say 1,000 people go out there and take their 10 fish, which usually that's not. Let's bump it down to like 50%. Let's like 5,000. Let's call it 5,000 fish. When they stock 15,000 of those little stockers in there, there's a good chance about 10,000 of them will live to the next season.
Okay.
And they take that into a very big consideration with those stocked lakes.
Gotcha.
Very interesting. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So let's rewind a little bit. We've kind of jumped ahead into what you're doing a lot now, but what year did you get out of the Army? Because
2019, 2020 is when my official out date was.
Okay. So you got here in 16.
Yeah.
So you got up here in 16 and then you got out officially in 2020. You said you got your own place. Did you get into any kind of big game hunting? Because, some deer hunting as kind of a kid growing up in that Midwest part of the country, but certainly a lot of waterfowl and upland bird and fishing, a heavy part of the life as we've so funnily heard. That was, if we're ever going to have a vault of great stories, that's got to be the first entry. That's all.
That's true.
That's awesome. So did you get into any kind of big game hunting like moose, caribou, bear, stuff like that?
Yeah, of course. Well, when I was in, I guess it still started when I was backtrack even. Still started when I was in. I met a really great NCO.
Okay.
Very good leadership skills, and he didn't really care about the whole fraternization.
The good
thing.
ones normally don't.
Yeah. I mean, anything to keep these like guys in this desolate place up and moving.
Keep you out of trouble.
Yeah, and keep you out of your room, man. I mean, that's the biggest killer of these guys up here. They got absolutely no lives, nothing to do besides, either go to the bars, get hammered every single weekend, get hammered in their room on the weekday, play video games, and try to get. And, it's real. There's not a lot of people up here, so the population density sucks. But I was very, very fortunate enough to have that type of leader up here, and it was one field problem. We're out, and he's like, "Man, this place, like our camo fits in perfectly with this place. I'm going to use this camo to go caribou hunting." And I heard, "Ooh, like caribou hunting?" Like, Sarn, take me caribou. Sarn, take me caribou hunting. And I just pestered him enough to where he's like, "All right, this is the day we're going to go. Be there, be square." Okay. And he was fortunate enough to take me out caribou hunting for a long weekend. We went out and shot my first caribou, a couple caribou, and then
nice.
Then I was able to, then I wouldn't say I knew it all, but I knew enough, hunter safety and the ethics to invite some of my buddies. We're going to go hunt the 40 mile. So we went out and hunt the 40 mile. We went way back in there away from everybody, got a couple caribou, hauled them out. All right. Done deal. And then I heard of like bear baiting. Then I got into bear baiting, and that was a whole venture. Yeah. That was like my first real venture by myself. I just kind of Googled a lot what it took to bear bait. Got the bear bait certificate. Went on Google Maps. I think Google Maps is a great tool for those people like me who hate spending money for like things like OnX. I think that's an amazing tool.
Right.
But Google Maps, it's the same exact maps as on OnX. In my opinion, they're a little more clear than OnX maps.
I was going to say, and honestly, the definition on them is a lot better.
Yeah. And I just went off out toward Esther with the Google Maps.
Can you do waypoints on Google Maps at all?
Yeah. I've got spots all over this thing. Nice. On Google Maps.
I knew you could do temporary ones. I didn't know if they'd stay forever though.
Yeah. I just went on Google Maps, found this. Somebody told me about a logging road. I'm like, okay, great place to start. A logging road. And then I just went off on Google Maps, and from the air, I found a trail system. From the trail system, I'm looking for little spots opening, some type of clearing because that's kind of what I would hunt in Illinois, for deer. I don't love absolutely staying in the thickest part of the stuff, just condensing my area of operation to like a trail. Like hopefully if something's going to come down, it's going to come down this little trail. Right. Not like anywhere around me. Went on Google Maps, found this trail, found a little patch open area I could see from the sky. Okay, bam, there's my waypoint. At the time I bought a four-wheeler, while I was in. Here's spring. I drive out there, drop the four-wheeler, go in there, check this spot out, deemed it worthy. I didn't know what the heck I was doing, but I deemed it
there
worthy,
It takes doing it, man.
Googled, what do you put in a bait barrel? Looked up like the regs for what I can put in a bait barrel here. Okay, obviously not like fish scraps and stuff like that. So I just narrowed it down to molasses and dog food, like the tried and true, tested and proven thing for years of what you can bait for bears. And lo and behold, set the barrel up, put a bunch of stinky stuff out, set my stand up, got a trail camera, and dude, like that, I had bears. Yeah. Like, I must be doing something right.
There you go.
So that's how I got into doing my big game stuff. So
that's awesome.
So then fast forward a couple years, I get out, I move into my own place, a little dry cabin up off of Goldstream. My landlord of that place was a big game guy. He was an outfitter. He did bear boat-based hunts. Now he does goats. But he does bears and goats off the boat down in Ketchikan. And he also does sheep, bears, and moose up in the Brooks Range. Okay. He had his worker drop out on him, skip town, disappeared. Don't know what happened to him. I didn't ask any questions, although I probably should have. He's like, is this something you want to do? I always said like, oh man, the biggest dream, like if I could do anything for the rest of my life, I'd love to be like on TV, going around like hunting, fishing, talking to a camera, this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm going to do it. And then go out and do it. And then try to get some stuff on film. And he kind of led with that. Oh, this is a great segue.
Yeah.
So he coerced me. It didn't take much coercing. I quit my job immediately. I was like, yes, I'm going to do this. Jumped on a plane with him, flew down to Ketchikan, got a couple bears, came back, spent a month kind of tying up loose ends, flew me out to the Brooks Range. And the Brooks Range, I spent 47 days in camp, my first ever like big game guiding experience. That was my stint. 47 days and like 196 miles walked in that time. So
wow.
We didn't get any sheep. We did get some bears, but I had a waterfowl guide who had hired me for that season. So I had some prior obligations I wanted to take care of. So I couldn't stick around for the moose season. So I got flown out before the moose season started. Honestly, because I don't want to carry those big things on my back, dude. But so I flew out, and then I started that season for guiding waterfowl. And ever since, I've just been sticking to the fishing in the summer and winter, and then I do a lot of waterfowl guiding.
Yeah.
But that's how I got all into that big game. That's like kind of been my big game guiding experience.
Yeah.
You want to call it?
I remember a couple of years ago, I walked into your current place of work.
Yeah.
And I think I was looking for a box of 375 Ruger ammo, and then you mentioned that. Well, I have that gun too, or something along those lines. And we got talking, and then you said that you were doing some guiding at the time, and that was kind of our first interaction. And but yeah, so waterfowl and then fishing in the summer. Are you doing guiding for fishing stuff in the summertime now too?
Yeah, a lot of fly fishing.
Okay.
I mean, there's, as you know, there's plenty of bodies of water between here and Delta. And I tell you this, I'll be the first person to admit I wouldn't say I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm definitely not the best person around to do it with. But I think I'm a pretty good personality. I do like talking to people. I like getting people hyped up, especially on a fish, 6 inches or 20 inches. I get people hyped up on fishing, because when it comes down to it, like, we're out there, we're doing it. It's better than sitting on the couch. But I've only been fly fishing for about 5 years now.
Okay.
And in the last 2 is when I've been taking people out fly fishing for so exclusively. Where I like to take a lot of people on is the Delta Clearwater River.
Oh yeah.
For the trophy grayling. Yeah. If you guys have ever fished that, you know that there's a plethora of fish in that river, and a lot of them are in trophy size. If you want to get a Alaska trophy size, it'd be any grayling upwards of 18 inches.
That's a fast moving body of water in some spots.
Yes, it can. Yeah. Oh yeah, it can be.
Yeah.
But
cold too.
And
my goodness,
it's all spring fed. All comes right out of the ground. That's the biggest question I get when they I tell them, hey, I know it's 75 degrees out here, 65 degrees, but wear some thermals or a pair of sweatpants with your waders, because you're gonna get in there, it's gonna be cold.
The first time I went down there, I didn't have my waders with me, and so I just went straight Arkansas style, and just rolled my pants up.
A wet wade.
Rolled up your overalls.
Rolled up my exactly. Rolled my pants up, took my shoes off, and just waded out there. And my goodness,
I've done some wet wading in there. Yeah, I don't last long. But I do get in there without the waders on every once in a while. It's refreshing, man. You gotta expose yourself to it every once in a while.
Exactly. Yeah. Joe Rogan talks about that.
Yeah, man. Cold plunge.
I'll
tell you what, man. That is just wonders for my. What's his name? Stacy, pull that up on the. Pull that video up, man. Look at me.
It's Jamie.
Jamie, can you pull that up on the? Yeah, look at me get in there, man.
Look at me. You could see my veins growing.
I absolutely just love it, man.
Okay, so now, just a quick side bar about the Delta Clearwater. That river doesn't freeze in the wintertime, does it?
Nope, no, it does not. It's all spring fed. So as cold as it is in the summer, you would think It does, but there are pockets in the river where the water just still comes like straight out of the ground. And it's because of that current that's what keeps it open all year round. I mean, even the lake, it's hard to see that lake freeze over.
Interesting.
You can, if you've ever been on the Clearwater Lake and you've driven across, it's crystal clear, just like the river.
Yeah.
But you could see it's got a really soft bottom. And the reason, because it has a soft bottom, it's very aerated. You could see just like holes all across the bottom of the lake. Yeah. And you would think like, whoa, that's like moose tracks across the bottom of the lake, but it's not. They're bubbles. It's places where the spring comes up out of the ground and keeps the water open all year round.
Interesting. Yeah. Several years ago, I went out. I got flown out to a little homestead spot on the Clearwater for work for a customer at my day job, and this has been a while ago. But he flew my boss and I out there to do a job, and it was a full on house, like a nice place on the Clearwater.
Yeah,
and it was middle of winter. We were flying out there, and everything was covered in snow. We're looking at moose. All the moose had already dropped their headgear. And we get out there and the river's still wide open, and I had no idea what to expect. And I'm like, what is wrong with this river? Like it's 20 below zero out here, and this is like flowing hard.
Yeah.
It was really interesting to see that.
Yeah. It's an amazing ecosystem on that river, as far as from like winter to summer goes. Watching the we have like a crazy mayfly hatch out there in like the July time frame. And I would say that's like the best place to get some topwater action in that span of season. I love it. I love it. Like you cannot keep me off that river in the summer. Like I'll go there just to fish by myself.
Right.
I got friends there, and they let me stay in their house or a little RV they got in the front yard. I'll just make it work. But I love spending time on that river. It's beautiful. I like seeing all the duck flying up and down the river. They use it in the springtime. And then I love going back there in the fall and shooting them in the fall.
There you go.
Yeah, that's cool. Very cool.
So how many, so you pretty much started guiding right out of the gate as soon as you got out of the military then, huh? Is that pretty much like you just dove right into it?
On my own, yes.
Yeah.
But I think I mentioned earlier, when I was a kid, like I said, my dad and I fished all these big tournaments on Lake Michigan. And it wasn't until, one random day at a tournament, I'm standing there for a weigh-in. I get tapped on the shoulder. There was a charter boat guy where he had a pretty great system. He told the clients, hey, I'd like to register for the tournament. I just need you guys' names and stuff for the tournament. If you guys would like to go and fish the tournament, let me know. But if you guys don't want to, that's fine. But if you guys come in, we'll go to the weigh-in. We'll look at everybody's catch. They'll feed you a little lunch. And his deal was, if we won a tournament, the charter was free. That was a great trade-off. I mean, he never did win. Like we always beat him, but it was
like playing the lottery. I mean,
exactly.
You just never know.
Yeah, and it was a way to kind of get him and the clients a little bit more like, oh yeah, let's win this thing. Like, and it was just a great way to hype up people and especially like when I'm doing like my like personal stuff, man, I just love hyping people up. I like to think of it as getting somebody who has like no business being out there doing this into it, and just like teaching them. I absolutely love teaching them not only how to catch the fish, but especially like how to treat them, and ethics wise. If we're in these like put and take, if we're in these like catch and release lakes, I'll just use the Clearwater River for an example. Keeping the fish in the water, getting your hands wet before you even touch the fish. If you want to get a picture, I have them keep them in the water. I have them pull it up. Somebody gets a picture. I hold the net underneath the fish. That way they don't drop it in the boat. Because I always tell them, if you're going to drop the fish, drop it in the water. Don't drop it in the boat.
Right.
And that's what the little net, like I got all these pictures of me with clients, and you could just see like the rim of the net just below the fish. Cause those grayling, they're so agile and they're so slippery to hold on to that, they'll just spaz out and a person will go, wah, and drop the thing and scoop it up with the net and just get it in the water.
Right.
just don't let it hit the boat. You just want to keep them as healthy as we can.
Yeah.
And that extremely correlates to ice fishing.
Yeah, it does. Okay, yeah.
Well, you got to think you're pulling out these fish who are wet. Let's say it's 10 below outside. We get the fish up to the hole. In other places, like in the Midwest, I always had a gaff because we were keeping them no matter what.
Right.
But here I can't use a gaff, so I take the glove off, get my hands a little wet. I work the line, work the fish up the hole. I grab the fish. I keep the fish in the water, unhook the thing, tell them, hey, get your cameras out, get you right next to me. I'm going to pull this thing out. I'm going to get it in your hands.
Right.
We're going to take a picture, and I'm going to get back in this water. Because at 10 below, it takes no time for their eyeballs, their skin to freeze up.
Right.
And when we're like going to release a fish, like you have to treat that thing with the utmost respect.
Absolutely.
Good rule of thumb is hold your breath. That's like I've heard that everywhere. If you're going to release a fish, as soon as you pull that thing out of the water, hold your breath.
Right.
And keep it out of the water for as long as it's uncomfortable for you to hold your breath. But when it's cold out, that time needs to be cut in half.
Yeah.
Because it takes nothing for like I said, their eyeballs, their fins, their skin, everything else to freeze up. Pull it out, get a good picture with it, put it back in the water, let it get a drink, keep it fully submerged. And like me, I don't care. Like I'll put my hands in the water. Like I'm cold. I don't care. We'll get the tape measure strung out. If I don't have a towel or a jacket, I try to get the ice, like, flip out a bunch of water onto the ice to try to get the ice nice and wet. Get the fish down, get a measurement on it, back into the water again. One last look, one maybe final picture, and release it.
Yeah.
That's like my biggest stipulation, especially with like the big lake trout we catch through the ice. It is imperative that these fish get a healthy release.
Right.
Because there ain't no point of just taking it out and slamming it on the ice and snow and letting it flop around and you sticking your hands up in the air, woo, screaming from across the lake, and everybody's looking at you with this, big fish flopping on the ice. Like there's no point.
Yeah. No, if you're keeping it for food, it's one thing, but like
exactly,
catch and release,
yeah, it don't matter. Like, throw the thing on the ice if you're keeping it. I don't care.
Right. Well, and it's like I've known guys in catch and release areas, and they catch the fish and pull it out, and then take their picture, and then just like kind of huck it back into the lake, and it's like it's same thing. It's like why? Like
or like kicking it back into the middle of the stream. Like come on, dude.
Like just gently put it back where it lives.
It costs $0. It's zero effort to release a fish healthily.
Yeah. And we were talking about that a little bit before the show started off air, but it's like people seem to have a hard time equating the same ethics from hunting to fishing. Even somebody who's a very ethical hunter will sometimes just not care when it comes to fishing.
It's just a fish. It's just a fish.
It's just a fish. Yeah. But it's, its whole ecosystem is just in this one lake. Like, there's not like an infinite number of fish in this lake. There might be a lot, but it's not infinite.
Well, and then we get back to what I was just talking about, something like this at the shop this weekend. The ethics that go in hunting and fishing are have some very, very different, very apparent differences in it. One, like when you go hunt stuff, there is no catch and release. Like when you shoot something, like you're aiming to kill, you want to kill that thing, you want to put it out of its misery as quick as possible. Now, when you're killing fish and you're keeping them, that it should be the same ethics, either bonking it on the head, cutting the gills, getting it to bleed out as quick as possible. You just want to kill the fish to end the suffering. But going back to what I just said, there is no catch and release in hunting.
Right. Yeah.
Now maybe you're one of those guys on helicopters who goes nets these things and like tags them or something, and then really like sure. Then you want to get it tagged and released as quick as possible without harming the animal. But with the fishing, it's a completely different realm as far as when you're going to release them. And like you said, some people just have like no respect. Oh, it's just a fish. They got zero respect. But yeah, you're totally right. That is their ecosystem. That is their body of water in which they live. I mean, I even know on the clear water, when those grayling come in and migrate. And there's a resident population on the Clearwater that stay there all winter long. Like you can walk down to the boat launch there and see grayling in the water in the winter.
Wow.
Some of them never leave.
Mm-hmm.
But I've talked to fish and game folk, and they go out and they do a lot of catching and releasing and tagging. And from what I've heard, these grayling that come in there every year, that can get up to about 20 years old. About 17 is about
really?
the average.
That old?
Yeah, about 17 is a.
No kidding.
I think one of the 17 is what I've Googled once is about the average or like longest lifespan of a grayling.
Wow.
But a lot of those fish will come up that river and they'll find that same hole they sat in the year before, and they will sit there all year round. They won't
really
move. They'll bully other fish out of their hole, or they'll kind of stay there with their other fish. But they'll come up and they'll sit in the same hole every single year. And that's just what I've gotten from some fish and game guys who go out there and tag them. And I've caught tagged grayling out there, and they put, like little clothes. Like a little price tag for like the clothes. It's a little plastic thing with a T on the end of it.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the exact same method they use to tag those, the little plastic T just underneath the base of the skin. And then it's like a little piece of like rubber wire that you would use for like wiring a car.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have a little number on it. I've caught some grayling out there where that tag was completely covered up by some type of algae or just junk that they've did over the years. And you have to keep them in the water and like scratch off the junk on the tag just to read the numbers and get a picture of it and then submit it with the Fish and Game. And I don't really get much stuff back from them. I've reported a couple of numbers and they're like, "Thank you for your report."
Right.
And I'm like, "Buddy, I can't even get like a word back of like when this thing was tagged."
Automated message.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh. Yeah.
But they do have a tagging program on the Clearwater, and I think it'd be cool if I actually got some information back from them because I catch so many fish out there. And we're looking at like, I think the most tagged fish I caught in one season was 3. I don't remember catching any this past season, but
gotcha.
But yeah, they're definitely tagged fish out there. It'd be cool. It'd be cool to.
I think it's easy for folks to, from the hunting and fishing, just corresponding back and, that there are relations, from the ethics for one side versus the other. Mm-hmm. But it's easy for people, and even myself, up until a few years ago, you just look at them differently because, there's fish everywhere, right? There's not a moose behind every tree. There's not a bear behind every mountain. There's not a sheep on every peak.
Yeah. But there's fish everywhere.
But there's fish everywhere, right? So what does it really matter in the grand scheme of things if I try to catch and release one and I don't, use kid gloves to take care of it, so to speak? Mm-hmm. And I've gotten a lot better with that in my since I moved back here. I just kind of try to be more respectful, and I'm not trying to be too mushy about it, so to speak. But I do think that it's important to be respectful. At the end of the day, they're living out there too. They don't have an easy life. No more than a caribou or a moose does. Right. It's just a different environment. And yeah, you have to treat them with respect and don't just, you see it all the time, people fishing off the bridges or fishing off the bank somewhere, and you see them yank a grayling out and it flops on the bank for 5 or 6 minutes.
Smacking on the rocks.
Yeah. While they're trying to get their phone out to take a selfie with it.
And then they take out their pliers and they just rip that hook out of there, and that bottom jaw is just destroyed, and they just throw it back out in the water, 3-4 feet out into the water, and it slap hits the ground. And it really aggravates me watching YouTube videos of fishing and watching guys, channels that have millions of views. Yeah. And guys are pulling fish out and they've got them out of the water and they're not holding them in the water to take the hook out, nothing like that. And then they stand there and they have the fish out and they tell their whole story about how they caught the fish and how long they've been out there. And you watch it and it's 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 40 seconds, a minute plus. And then, all right, well, we're going to put this guy back in the water. And then they just turn around and whoosh, just chuck it off into the water. Yeah. That makes me mad because that's what makes us look bad.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
It is. Yeah.
People that are anti-fishing look at that and go, "Look at how they mistreat that fish." That's just a bad look. Yeah. So have some more class than that.
Yeah. But. I mean, there's been days I've been out on the Clearwater, I like to let the client release the fish. I think it's like a personal experience.
Right. Yeah.
I put it in their hands. All right, just keep it in the water until he's ready for a good, healthy kickoff. And sometimes they just get a little overzealous and the thing gives like, a half pump and darts off and then kind of folds up sideways.
Yeah.
I got to run out there. I net it. I grab it. I really keep it in the water. Anybody out there listening, a good thing I've learned by just watching some other more ethical YouTubers is getting upriver of the fish and taking your net and vigorously chumming up the water. That lets air get into the water. Lets air get into the gills. A little bit more air, a little more exposure to air for the gills to get that fish kind of back up and running a little bit.
Okay.
Interesting.
But I've seen it like way too many times, like even on the ice. Somebody will just take fish and torpedo that thing down the hole.
Right.
Well, what happens is when you shove that fish down the hole and they're not ready to go, they float up back to the top, they go sideways, and they grab that ice and they freeze to the bottom of the ice.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Like you could take a camera down and look at that fish sitting up practically dead. I wouldn't say dead, but fighting
Stunned.
for its life, stunned.
Yeah.
Up against the bottom of the ice.
Yeah.
And when especially when I release those big lake trout, I hold on to the tail. And it's just about knowing, like reading animals' body language.
Yeah. Right.
If it just gives me like a little half pump, little like some kind of not very aggressive, shake to get out away from me, I'll hold it there.
Yeah.
I'll hold it. I'll bounce it up and down, getting the gills, water throwing through the gills. And then once it really gives me an aggressive shake, I let it go. I put my head down to the hole and I'm like, oh, thank God. I look at the sonar. I'm like, okay, there he's down 50, 60, 70. He's gone.
Yeah.
And that's when I can like ethically be like, oh, all right, that is a healthy release. And I didn't mention this, but I've done that when my brother has a charter boat down in Florida. Go down and visit him all the time. And, we catch like marlin, sailfish, kind of tarpon. And that's kind of where I learned how to release those fish, holding the fish up against the side of the boat, ripping it back and forth a little bit, getting some gills, getting some water going through the gills. Man, he gave me a little pump. Nah, he's not ready to go yet. He's not ready to go. Sometimes he'd bring him up above the way of the current, let it go, and if the fish turned sideways, he'd run to the back of the boat and grab the tail again and, keep pumping him again until he's healthy and ready to go. And that's kind of where I learned a lot more of that stuff.
Yeah. Somebody told me one time that if when you're trying to release one in that particular way, if he's not trying to get out of your hand, then he ain't ready yet.
No,
just wait until he's got as much strength seemingly as when you pulled him onto the shore to begin with.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it's a hard, especially with the big fish.
Yeah,
it is a hard battle. Like they are given. In my experience, let's just talk about lake trout. These like 30+ inch fish that weigh 20 some odd pounds.
Yeah.
That is a lot of energy they have to exert. Imagine, getting pulled up and down this hallway by a rope, fighting for your life, getting dragged, and by the time they get you to the door, you got no gas left.
Yeah.
You are not going to want to walk back up the hallway and up the flight of stairs you just came from. It's a fight. It just gasses them out. And that is something I preach to every single person when we're doing these catch and release stuff is, you want a nice, healthy release.
Sure.
Now, you said you learned the method down there with your brother in Florida, but the whole concept of these ethics, I mean, was that something that was instilled in you as a kid? Like, is that how you kind of grew up fishing? Or where did that come from?
Not at all. I mean, on Lake Michigan, as far as like the retention rates in Lake Michigan, you're allowed to keep 5 fish on Lake Michigan. 2 of those were allowed to be lake trout. It was very
daily or like
daily,
total?
daily.
Yeah.
It was very, very seldom that we would release a fish. If it caught a little one that was over 12 inches, I think that was like the 15 inches.
Gotcha.
That was like, all right, put it in the cooler. We got a small one.
Yeah.
That happens. But it wasn't up until I moved down, or I didn't move, but it wasn't until I went down to Florida, messed around with my brother for a couple of seasons.
Okay.
To where I got that kind of hands-on experience of really releasing fish.
Right, because you can't keep any of those like big marlin or anything, right? Like
if you have, I know the tarpon, at least if you have like a kill permit, some guys will come out with like a kill permit.
Gotcha.
But as far as the tarpon go, if you don't have a kill permit, you're not even allowed to take them out of the water.
Oh wow!
Like when you land that thing, you get it up alongside of the boat, you get the client up, you get the client to hold the mouth of it, and you get a picture from the tuna tower. Or if you're or if the client's ballsy enough, you get them in the water with them. Yeah,
buddy.
I always love that. But get them in the water with them. I mean, there was a lot. There's not many lakes that I fished in the Midwest to where if I went to it, I was going to release fish.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Those ethics were really kind of more or less like self-taught up here.
Yeah.
Gosh, I remember. As far as like, let's just going back to Harding Lake. I remember my first lake trout.
Yeah.
Caught on Harding Lake. On Harding Lake, you're allowed to keep one over 30 inches. That's it. One a day over 30 inches. I caught this lake trout. It was over 30 inches. I got my picture with it. I was putting it back. At the time, I might not have had the best method to catch and release these fish because I didn't do it a bunch yet.
Right.
But the only reason I didn't keep that fish is because I've caught 100 of them in Lake Michigan.
Right.
You know, I know they don't taste the best, and I just didn't want to. I didn't want to keep it. I was going to throw it back, let it go back. I know I've talked about this before the show, but I'll just reinstill this. It's just the most random person out there. And as you know, you called it hard luck earlier.
Yeah,
hard luck. It is hard luck. Guys will go out there and fish years and years and years and never catch one. I just saw a buddy on Instagram. He posted a picture with a lake trout on Harding, and he's like, maybe it'll be another 3 years. I'll catch my third one.
Right.
Catch my third one. It was a second fish in 6 years. Yeah. And imagine like dedicating that much time to try to catch one of those fish.
Yeah.
When you catch one, you're going to want to keep it.
Right.
Like I've just spent hours and hours and hours of looking at the radar and getting fish to chase me, and trying to, pull one out of the hole. Gosh, when I get one, I'm keeping it. It's either going on the wall or going in the smoker, right?
Yeah, right.
And it's up to, guys like us who go out there and fish it all the time to, teach that to people, like, cause they don't know. Of course, they've never caught one before. When they get one up, they're going to want to bonk it on the head and keep it.
Well, and the big ones are the spawners.
Big ones are the spawners. And as far as lake trout goes, it takes them just about 8 years to reach spawning age.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how old do lake trout get?
That's a great question. That is an amazing question.
Should I look it up?
Do you have service? I'd love to know that question. My guess would be about 20 years. 20 if I had to guess.
I don't have service, but I've got Wi-Fi, so.
Yeah, we keep the service turned off so the government can't listen to us.
Yeah.
You hear that feds? You hear that feds, man?
Well, we did.
Screw you,
turning the frogs.
Well, we probably heard a pretty bad story earlier.
If I'm totally wrong on that lake trout spawning age, just say you can't find it.
Right.
if their lifespan's only like 5 years, just don't add. There's no info.
Right.
There's no info. But I would love to know.
On Alaska Fish and Game website, it says Alaska lake trout can live longer than 50 years, but more typical maximum ages are around 20 years.
Wow.
What I tell you.
Yeah.
You're good.
Yeah, if I had to guess, it would be
about
20 years.
Yeah, what are you gonna do?
I'm sure right below that it says spawning up to 3 years of age.
I guess
I didn't see.
It kind of just blows my mind. I never thought fish like lived that long. I mean, I knew like ocean fish did.
Sure,
like
sturgeon.
Certain one, yeah.
Sturgeon. I mean,
right.
Hundreds and hundreds of years.
Right.
That big.
But like a little or something like that. Like I never even thought about it.
And when you take one of those big, 30 plus inch fish, like you think, how old is this fish?
Yeah.
How many fish has this fish produced in the lake? Either spawned or like milked on to help produce more lake trout in that lake.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you never know when you're pulling up one of those fish. Like it could be, I'm only 25. When I pull up one of these fish, it could be old as I am.
Right.
That's a true
That's
statement.
crazy. That is crazy.
Wow.
Well, I remember a couple of years ago, I was watching a video of somebody catching sturgeon. I think it was in Canada.
Okay. Yeah.
And they said that, for a sturgeon this size, we estimate this fish to be, and it was something crazy, like 150 years old.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's got to be like the oldest fish out there.
And it's still
then,
getting hooked.
Oh, yeah.
They never learn, do they?
Well, I don't think they get fished that much.
Yeah.
I don't think they get that much pressure. But then you look at places in, what am I thinking of? The Montana Breaks country. They've got those shovel nose.
Paddlefish.
Yeah, paddlefish.
Yeah,
Yeah. And those get super old too.
Yep. They're prehistoric. They're predate
Just
back
insane.
to I think it's like the Mesozoic era, what they predate back to.
Yeah. Super old anyway. But
man.
Yeah, it's very interesting. But then for our, home state around here, I never thought that fish got that old.
I know.
Yeah.
Just last year, I heard somebody say, well, yeah, that's got to be like a 15-year-old grayling. And I thought, you're full of it. There's no way that fish is 15 years old. And then I started looking it up, and a lot of these fish live to be a lot older than I ever thought. And so,
Well, and it's kind of the same thing with salmon, even. The salmon that come up the rivers. I mean, they're all, I think they're all pushing 10 years old too, somewhere in there.
Is it really that old?
Between, I think it takes 7 years.
Does certain salmon get older than others?
Or am I thinking that?
I hate to,
or maybe 4 is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I hate to stomp on you.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
Like typical spawning for salmon, as you know, when salmon spawn, they die.
Right. Yeah.
That's not the case with like other trout and other salmonoids. But as far as like, let's just take the king salmon, for example, the most popular, most sought after one there is out there.
Yeah.
Their typical lifespan is up to 5 years. They can spawn as early as 3.
Gotcha.
On average 4.
Okay.
The silvers, and this is just another reason why the silvers don't get as big. Up to 4, as early as 2 on average.
Oh, really?
On average 3.
Really?
Because I thought at some point somebody had told me they stay out in the ocean for like 5 or 6 years, but I probably just heard.
So
wrong
they'll
then.
hatch and then go out to sea, and then they'll hang out there for minimum 3 years or so. For the kings
come
anyway,
back up.
and then come back up, spawn, and then die.
Okay, so they're younger than I thought they were then.
Yeah,
maybe that's where.
But I think that is just absolutely so impressive that let's just take the king salmon for example. What's like the state record? Like 80 some odd pounds.
Oh, more than that.
That fish can grow at such an exponential rate,
right?
And just at a minimum of 5 years. I mean, God, toddlers don't even grow that big. Like the human race doesn't grow that much in 5 years.
Yeah.
But when you look at salmon like that, and it's all because of what they eat.
Right.
Out there. Like you're not going to see any sterile stock salmon push 10, 15 pounds out here because they're eating little tiny plankton, microscopic bugs, things of that nature out here.
So Alaska's state record king salmon size is 126 pounds.
Okay, I was way
the largest.
Wasn't it caught down in
the largest
Soldotna?
king on record, sport record, is a 97-pound king caught on the Kenai River in 1985.
Yeah.
The commercial record is 126 pounds. Yeah.
Man.
Wow.
I think they've got a statue of that guy down there, don't they? Holding that record fish.
I don't know.
The 96 pounder.
Yeah, the 96
pounder. There's a picture
pounder.
of it.
A couple of photos came up
Pump.
here.
Yeah.
Is there really?
I think there's a photo of it at the Chena Pump. There might even be like a graphite replica hanging up in there too.
Yeah.
I think it's that photo won't come up. Huh. Yeah. Well, it's this one right here, but not that our listeners can see it. The one on the right side, is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the one.
There's another one of him like in the water with it.
Yeah.
That fish is almost as tall as they are.
Well, and somebody had told me part of what that story is so apparently fish shrink fairly quickly when you pull them out of the water. And
really?
Yeah, they sun cooked and dehydrated and they shed the water weight and all that. And so these guys had caught that fish earlier in the day and then kept it, but left it in the boat or on the stringer. And so they kept fishing the rest of the day and didn't weigh it till they got back hours later. And so they're estimating it was actually heavier than that when they pulled it out of the water.
Yeah.
Look at this one, 97 pounds.
No, man, look at that thing.
This one's in the boat.
Oh, son.
That is a hog.
Dude.
Yeah, I'd have that smile on my face too.
Right? He's practically got his eyes closed.
Ear to ear, man.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. I think the biggest one I ever caught personally was like a 45 pounder.
Yeah.
On rod and reel. That was absolutely the best fight of my life. That was just a riot.
Yeah.
Rod and reel fishing is my favorite kind of fishing. Like,
me too. I mean, honestly, me too.
That is just fantastic to catch a king like that. Back when you could catch them in that spot.
I think the biggest one I've caught was in Lake Michigan. And that was like 26, 27.
Yeah.
And
what kind of salmon do they have in Lake Michigan?
So they have two. Well, actually, now they just started introducing Atlantic salmon.
Oh, really?
In the last 5 years, they just started putting Atlantic salmon in there and seeing how they're doing.
Okay.
But when I was around, when it was my lake, we have king salmon. We've got the cohos, and that's what we always call them there. It's cohos, so it's silvers.
Yeah.
And then we have 3 different species of trout. We have steelhead or rainbow.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the brown trout and then the lake trout.
Interesting.
But other than that, there's a assortment of other species in that lake. Those were just the ones that we would target for our tournaments.
Yeah.
Let's see, there's a variety of perch, walleye, catfish. There's actually catfish in that. I've seen videos of guys fishing out, let's say 100 and some odd feet of water with a dipsy diver rig estimated down like 45 feet and then pulling out 15-pound channel cat. Like hitting it mid water column. Like, what the heck is this fish doing smoking a spoon, traveling at 2 miles an hour through the water? But other than that, I think there's probably sturgeon in Lake Michigan.
I think you're right.
But yeah.
Are there really?
And whitefish, there's a whitefish.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
whitefish in there.
Whitefish are good.
I love whitefish.
Yeah.
No.
Have you gotten out in, I'm sure you've done some charter stuff up here by this point, but like for rockfish, halibut, things like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yellow eye type of thing.
Yeah. This most recent one we did, it wasn't a charter, but we went down to Seward, Miller's Landing, and we rented one of those boats. And it's crazy to think that these people just let you rent like a 19-foot Stavacraft.
I know.
Like a 90 horse Johnson on the back of it and let you just have the day with it. But we went out of Seward and we caught, let's see, I think there was five of us. Yeah, 4 adults and a kid. We caught our limit of chickens.
Nice.
And I think this is like like the deep sea stuff. It's great. I have massive respect for it. I caught my first yellow eye.
Yeah.
And I was super proud of that. Lady next to me caught her yellow eye. And so then we were extremely stoked about it. But down there, you see the salmon just jumping on the top of the water.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If you go down even to all of the Homer Spit area, Seward, I think you can even see them in Whittier. Salmon are just jumping out there in the water. And sometimes they would be jumping, 30, 40 feet from us. Well, I had a spinning rod with a casting spoon on it.
Yeah.
And if I just saw one jump, within a place I could catch, I'd slam the pole in a pole holder, jump up on the bow, and whip that spinning rod out in front of them. Yeah. And I caught 3 silvers that day doing that. Yeah.
Wow.
That was a lot of fun because you just see them out there and like, oh, they're heading that way. Get out in front of them, and I was getting them hooked up as close as like 5 yards from the boat.
Oh,
and
wow.
Seeing like 4 of them following, my spoon up in there. It was a lot of fun. If you're ever down there and you're out, deep sea fishing and you happen to have a spinning rod next to you and you see all these salmon jumping around, man, whip it out in front of them. Just try it. I mean, they're telling you they're right there. Yeah. I mean, it couldn't be any more easy to locate one of those things when they're jumping out there.
And they're jumping for eating purposes, or are they
they're just chasing little bait fish on the top of the water. You see just little hooligan or maybe smelt. I'm not too well versed in the deep sea stuff up here, but they're chasing that stuff through the water, and they hit the water and they come out, a couple feet, and they're like, oh, there's one right there.
Yeah.
Whip. I just got a little 1 ounce Meps casting spoon, silver and like purple or blue or something, and just pitch it out in front of them, like. Just take a couple of casts. All right. put it back in the pole holder, go back to your rod,
Yeah.
and wait for another one to jump out in front of you.
Yeah.
Wow.
In August, my wife and I went down to the Southeast Islands to deer hunt.
I saw that. You guys did pretty good. Huh?
Yeah, we did above average.
Cool. Great.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, she and I each shot one, and then our friends from out of state, Ryan Lampers, his company is one of our sponsors, Stealthy Hunter.
Oh, yeah.
And him and his daughter, Paley, and then a cameraman, we all went down there, and our flight out of the town got delayed at the beginning due to some really nasty weather. But it's August on the coast of Alaska, and the fish were just coming in by the bucketfuls.
Yeah.
So we fished nonstop for a couple of days, and just went to the local sporting goods store and bought a couple of little like not even what I would use for pike up here in the summertime. But we just bought an assortment of stuff, and Ryan actually, he used to do some fishing guiding up here, like down the peninsula way, back in quite a few years ago now. So I was asking him questions and be like, hey, so what kind of lure do I use? What pound line should I buy? And I am not nearly as big into fishing as a lot of people are.
Yeah.
That's just never been my thing. I'm trying to get more into it as I find that it's more and more fun.
Right.
But we went just around the town there and just drove the road system and fished, and it was a lot of fun. And fighting those fish on a little rod like that with like 6-pound test was just a riot. It was a lot of fun. I got a couple of pictures of them, and Ryan's daughter Paley caught several, and it was nice to be able to keep ourselves entertained for a couple of days, just sitting around town waiting to get flown out to deer hunt. But actually, kind of a funny story. We were getting flown out to a lake to start our deer hunt. And I had called Fish and Game beforehand, and I'd gotten the little map showing which lakes had fish in them and what kind of fish there was going to be. And Ryan had been asking me, he said, so are there going to be fish in this lake? And I said, well, I don't know, man. There's usually like a 40-foot waterfall on the way down to the salt water out of these lakes. I kind of doubt it, but you never know. I mean, it might not have a waterfall. There might be a feeder into it, but this one didn't have any feed streams. It was just all, coming off the mountains there, going to this huge lake. And so he brought a fishing rod. And not to give anything away here, but it came in real handy, not for fish.
Oh, yeah. You told me.
We ended up having to retrieve something out of a lake on the hunt with that fishing rod. And I had left mine in town with some friends, and he brought his just in case we flew out to the lake and then saw some fish jumping out there. He was going to try to catch some fish. Well, we ended up needing it. So I'll just leave that story at that. You're going to have to wait till the film comes out to see that. But it's awesome. It was the craziest thing I've ever had happen on a hunt. But yeah, we ended up needing that fishing rod.
Well, good stuff. Well, let's take a quick break, and I want to pick your brain a little bit more.
Okay, can do.
All right, folks. We all know that one of the most common mishaps in hunting is damage to your rifle scope. Last year, I found the solution to that problem with the Stealthy Hunter rifle cover. It wraps around your scope and actions securely to protect it from getting knocked off of zero or even severely damaged. Stealthy Hunter also has a glassing pad and a wide variety of supplements for the outdoorsman, such as protein powder, CBD products, turmeric, and gut health supplements. They also make a lightweight trauma kit weighing in at just 14 ounces that includes everything you need and nothing you don't for all of your backcountry medical emergencies. To shop all of their equipment and supplements, go to StealthyHunter.com and enter the discount code at checkout, The Northern Hunter, to save on your order today. All Stealthy Hunter equipment is proudly made in the USA.
All right, so let's kind of pull this back into like the interior of Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so what are like the primary fish that people can chase around like Fairbanks area or like kind of the interior region where we live?
In like just the general consensus of Fairbanks, if you want to talk about fish, you're looking at Chena River, Chattanooga River, Tanana, and Chena Lakes, and then a variety of public gravel pits that you can just go out to. And those fish consist of northern pike, grayling, and stocked salmon, stocked rainbow trout, and char. That'd be all that's around here. And any in case you didn't know this, any like rainbow trout you catch north of the Alaska range are stocked. There's no native rainbows north of the Alaska range, which a lot of people have no idea.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that, honestly. I guess I hadn't really thought about it. I didn't realize how many of the lakes around here were stocked. I've been on that website before, fairly recently, but and looked at it. I was surprised to see that. You know, I always kind of just assumed it was, there's fish in these lakes, but no, it's intentional. So let's get into like equipment and stuff like that for ice fishing in Alaska. I'm sure there's a lot of, similar equipment, probably all the same stuff for lower 48. Is there anything additional that you use up here, like because of the elements or the cold or anything like that, or just specific to Alaska?
Not that I can think of. I mean, basic stuff, going from like top to bottom. A tent, whether it's insulated or uninsulated, all my tents are insulated. That's got like the quilted tents on them. I use like a Big Buddy heater with the propane tanks. I have a little extension or a little connector for the big tanks. You can go all day and not worry about having to change these
big
little
15
bottles.
pounders.
Things that you'd use for your grill.
Right.
And then as far as like your ice auger goes, of course, you'd want to bring an extension for the later seasons. I think most ice augers cut up to like 2.5 feet. That's like to where you're like very much bending over. I think you could punch through it like just under 3 feet, like down to the bit head. But then you're worried about like how much snow you have on top of the ice. And then as far as like just rods around here, man, I love using like ultralight equipment. So all of my rods I use for the stocked lakes around here are all like ultralight Abu Garcia, ice combos. And you hook on to like this 10-inch rainbow, or like even a 12-inch rainbow, or like a 10-inch stocked salmon. You just see this thing bend over like a pool noodle, and it is so much fun when these people are bringing it up and they see the rod bend over like that. It just gets them so gassed up. I love it. I absolutely love it. But there's they got a light bite to them, so with those ultralight tips, you can really like see them smack that lure with that light tip. Back in Illinois, fishing for panfish like crappie and bluegill, we attached what's called a spring bobber to your pole. They make a couple different ones, but what I'm talking about, it's really a spring that's only about maybe 2 inches long, that gets taped to the end of your rod tip, and your line feeds through it. That way, when you see those really, really light strikes and bites, that little spring will twitch.
Okay.
But you'll know that's like it's called a spring bobber.
Okay. Gotcha.
But other than that, I mean, for the local lakes around here, you really just need, the smallest auger that they make, which is like a 6-inch auger. I mean, it's not like you're going to be pulling up something crazy out of there.
Right. Yeah.
And the smaller the auger, the easier it is to cut through the ice. Obviously, I mean, it's less ice you got to cut up, less effort.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about like what would you say? I mean, so the 6-inch would be good for the local lakes, but if somebody was wanting to get into, say, an auger to do just about everything, have you found the 8-inch ones to be sufficient for most things? I know some people go up to like the 10-inchers and whatnot.
Well, with that being said, I have an 8-inch bit and I have a 10-inch bit for my auger. I bring the 10. It's just a pin you pull and swap them out. I bring the 10 out on the big lakes for the big pike and the big lake trout. But around town, I use the 8. And with that being said, I've had a point in my life where all I had was an 8-inch auger. And when I go out to Harding, and I just I know that there's an opportunity. I know that there's fish in that lake that won't fit up through an 8-inch hole. I've pulled up fish that barely fit up through a 10-inch hole. And with that, you drill double holes. You just drill two holes like right next to each other, like a figure 8 style.
Okay. Yeah.
I found like the best way to manufacture those holes. I've tried, I've always like just drilled one hole and then drilled another one right next to it, all the way through. Most like best way to keep you and your stuff dry and free of all flying water and debris. Drill one hole just about an inch, just about an inch to where you're about to break through. And if you've dealt with an auger before in the past, that thing kind of starts binding up just when it's about to break through. It's kind of letting you know you're about to break through.
Yeah.
I drill it just about an inch or two before I break through, jump over and drill my next one all the way through, and then go back and punch the last, couple inches. That way, when you go to drill that second hole, if you already have a hole punched through, water and slush is going to start flying everywhere and get all over you and get all over your tent and all over all your stuff. It'll douse your buddy heater, all your rods. It'll be a complete mess. But I drilled a lot of holes before I figured that out. I'm like, man, maybe I'll try it this way. But now when I go out to the big lakes, I just bring the 10. That way, I'm safe. Like, there's probably a fish in that lake that won't fit through a 10-inch hole. But you really have to worry about that once we get, almost like 2 feet of ice. Because once you get, 2 feet between you and that fish trying to get his head up that hole, man, that's a task.
Yeah, I bet. So what about like advanced kind of equipment that you've used up here? I mean, you mentioned radars a couple times and things like that.
Yeah, and there is a variety of stuff on the market, whether it be brand names like Vexlar, Markham, Garmin, Humminbird. Myself, I have a Humminbird Helix 7.
Yeah.
The thing I love about this unit, as opposed to like your general, I call them flashers, fishing flashers. It's just a circle. It's a screen with a circle on it that marks bottom, marks the top of the water, marks your lure, and then when it swims through, marks your fish, or even like bait balls will mark bait balls through. But I have a Humminbird Helix. The beauty I love about this thing is when I bought it, it was for a boat. It has boat transducer. But then I found on like Amazon, they sell an ice fishing bundle, and it's just a couple buttons. You play with your settings on the thing, it'll switch it to ice mode. And any like general ice fisherman who has like equipment just for ice fishing, they usually have like a flasher. It's just that like circle deal. It's different than like your typical graph you would see on like a deep sea vessel where you get like the whole like moving plane of things like, oh, there's a fish back there a little bit.
Yeah.
But the thing I love about mine is I can get both of those views on the same screen. I could put my flasher on the one side and have like that graph on the other side.
Okay.
The beauty I love about that is when I'm looking at the flasher, it's just marking what's there in like real time. The graph will show me, I mean, it's only a little bit of a window, but the graph will show me something that was just there. Maybe I just didn't see, like, I turn around to open up my bottle of water, take a drink. I take my eyes off the screen for just a couple of seconds. And I look back, and if you had a flasher, nothing would be there.
Right.
But if you look on the graph, you'll see just a tiny little mark just through there. And like, oh man, maybe like there's something right there. Maybe I'll reel up or drop down to that depth, maybe work that depth. And the thing about these ice flashers are, especially with like boats, the ones with boats, they have cone angles on them. If you've ever seen a ice transducer, it looks like a bell. And the deeper you go, the bigger the cone angle gets. And on mine, it'll tell me, I know if I'm in 90 feet of water, I can change my cone angle to a 15 degree or a 25 degree cone angle. And in 90 feet of water, if I have a 25 degree cone angle, I can cover a 30-foot span on the bottom. Now, if something comes within that 32-foot span and it's something sizable, it will show up on that. Maybe not extremely hard, but it'll show you. There's like 3 color variations. Red being the hardest, yellow, and then usually like blue or green or something.
Does that tell you how far away it is from the sensor? Kind of,
sort of. Yeah. Red means it would be like right up underneath of it. Yellow means it's within a few feet. Green and blue, it's just barely picking it up on the outskirts.
Okay.
With anybody fishing, especially like a serious angler, if you're using one of those units, let's say I'm going to go back to 90. I'm going to fish in 90 feet of water. I'm fishing 90 feet of water. Let's say I'm down 80, like 10 feet off the bottom. That's pretty much where everybody wants to fish when they're ice fishing, is just up off the bottom. Because that's like something like you imagine us people walking across the earth. Where are we going to be at? We're on the bottom. There's a very limited population of us up in the clouds, and an even very smaller population up in space, right up underneath the ice. You got to think that's fish, equate fish to people. So,
they're not swimming up by the ice. They're swimming down low. Right.
But there is a small population of people up in space. There is a small population. There's people up there. And people have been there. So why not? Why wouldn't there be people up there again?
Yeah.
So,
or have we ever even been to space, Max?
I was saying allegedly.
Whoa, that's something.
Can of worms opened everywhere.
Or is there a space?
We'll keep that can of worms on the shelf.
That's for the other show. That's for the other show.
I'll tape the lid back on that one.
Maybe we'll have Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah, there we go.
Maybe he can talk to you about space and time and continue.
Boy.
So let's say I'm fishing 90 feet of water. I'm down 80. And I see a little something. It might not be right underneath where I'm fishing, but I see a little flash of something come through like 40 feet. Well, I could see there's within 30 feet of me, there ain't nothing down 80 where I'm fishing. I'll burn up to 40, work that water column for a little bit. And maybe that'd be just enough for him to come back through.
Right. Yeah.
Just catch attention.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Very interesting. And so all you're doing for ice fishing, obviously, it's a vertical game. You're not casting and then reeling in. So it's a totally different style than that.
Yeah.
So it's all just jigging.
It's tough too. It's tough.
Do you ever just drop a line down with some kind of a bait on it and then just let it sit just idly?
Plenty. Yeah. I think that's a great tool to use for pike and lake trout on the lakes that you can use bait. Of course, there are some lakes around here where you can't use bait.
Yeah.
But the majority of ones I fish, you can use bait. I've been when I'm out there by myself, I've been kind of getting out of it. And I just think it's just so much stuff to keep track of. Like, let's say I hook up onto a fish right here and 20 feet away, I see my tip up. Yeah. If you've ever used a tip up.
I was just going to ask if you use tip ups. Yeah.
Yep. I see a tip up go off, 20 feet away. Oh, now I'm like really in trouble. And that just circles back to the ethics thing.
Right.
Why have that run off for, 15 minutes while I'm fighting this fish with a hook in his mouth, potentially swallowing that thing. I have no idea how big that fish is over there. But if I have a client out, he's got his rod in his hand, I'll have a tip up out for him just to better his odds. I'm just trying to better his odds. But I've caught plenty of fish on like a full herring. Like I just go to the store and buy a herring.
Oh yeah.
Whitefish is better if you could find it. That's just kind of what they're eating. That's a little more they're keen on.
Okay.
You ever use that scent lure that they sell at Sportsman's called butt juice?
Butt juice, yeah, for like halibut and stuff. Yeah.
That stuff used to be one of my all-time favorite bear baiting lures.
Really?
Yeah. The grizzly bears love it.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. It is awesome.
Anything stinky.
It stinks so bad. Oh, it stinks terrible. I'll never forget the first time Mariah and I went out bear baiting together that I brought a bottle of butt juice. I had walked into Sportsman's. I was walking through the section, grabbing some Beta 907 stuff, which is another one of our show sponsors here. We've got
Love Jess.
Yeah,
She's awesome.
She is fantastic. But and just for a side note, we have a discount code for them, TNHP. You can get a discount on all your Beta 907 products.
You heard it here.
You heard it here first. Anyway, but back in the day, I was looking for more stinky scent, and Sportsman's doesn't have nasty boar in the store for health concerns, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. And I asked the guy, I said, hey, where are the fishing
scents at, some of those scent lures. And the guy just kind of looked at me because I had like a little hand basket just full of bear bait stuff, like anise yo-yos and blueberry sprays and some burn formulas. And he said, "What do you need it for?" I said, "What does it matter?"
I'm buying it.
Right.
I'm buying it.
I need
That's
something
why.
that stinks like fish because I can't use fish parts, but I can use stuff that smells like fish. I mean, if I could find a herring candle, I'd use that.
Oh, yeah.
As long as there's not a burn ban in that area.
Yeah.
But I went
Just
over and Lord knows my wife has enough of those for the rest of us. But anyway, so he took me over to the fishing section and he had some like little herring and then he had some squirt lures and then like that little pink paste. And I said, "What's butt juice?" And he said, "Oh, that stuff stinks." I said, "Perfect. I'll take 2.
Yeah, thank you.
They're
Sold.
like
I'll take
16.
12.
It was like $16 for a little pint bottle of it.
Yeah.
Took it out there and used up an entire bottle, thinking that it would wash off. And it poured rain that week. We had it on a grizzly bear bait, and the grizzly bears just ruined that tree.
Ooh.
I just ruined it. I mean, ripped it down. It was just it was half dead anyway, and it was just a little short tree that had gotten broken off, and they destroyed that tree. Just pulled it down, busted it up, claw marks all over it, and I thought, all right, I found the secret, found the secret
And
formula.
that's probably something that they haven't smelled before in that area.
Oh, I guarantee they hadn't smelled it in that area.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like you got to think, and if I can correlate that to fishing for lake trout,
Yeah.
I've found in the past couple of years a secret, if you wanna call it that.
Giving away all your secrets.
Yeah,
out there,
and dude, I'll tell you, like I'm not one of those guys who
No.
won't tell you anything.
Yeah, trying to hog it all for yourself.
No,
Right.
exactly. Because
Right.
where's like I absolutely love. For instance, I had some people that wanted to book me for fly fishing this season. I had the book stay. They were only here for X amount of days. I couldn't take them out, and they asked me, "Well, where could we go? Like, we can't." They didn't want to drive all the way to Delta. I said, "Go here." I dropped them a point of like where to go. I sent them some pictures of some flies I had. I sent them some pictures of some jigs I had in the box. I said, "Go ahead, man. Like, let me know how you do." And like that was when he sends me this picture of his wife with this grayling and in her hand, he's like, "I did everything you told me to do. She casted it upriver, she jigged it back, twitched it all the way back to her, and she caught this thing. And man, I'm so thankful, dude. Can what's your Venmo? Can you Venmo me some money?" I was like, "Dude, no, I'm just screenshotting this chat and I'm putting it on my Facebook because this is awesome."
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
and now that guy gets to say he took his wife out to go catch a fish. And I think
Right.
that's awesome.
Well,
dude.
and it probably especially rings true to you because you came up here not knowing about how to go out and do what you enjoy in this state.
Yeah.
And you didn't have a whole lot of people at the beginning that were willing to do that. So you just had to make your own way.
Right.
And so now you're on the flip side of that. You have the ability to teach people and provide information and education to folks. And so you enjoy doing that. And I think that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. But
So anyway, your secret.
going back to the lake trout.
Yeah.
Man, let's say I'm fishing someplace. I've got my holes drilled out. All right, I got one on the radar. He's looking at me. He didn't really like that. Maybe one comes by a little bit later, looks at me. He didn't really like what I was selling. Bring it up. Change baits.
Yeah.
Change baits. And this is no secret. You can Google what lake trout, like ice fishing lake trout. I don't know if I could say this on here if it's a sponsor or not, but Kodiak custom freaking tubes, white, green, chartreuse, whatever with the red nose. Heck, try pink.
Yeah.
For all I care.
Yeah.
The Columbia River, they have the same exact stuff, maybe with like little fins on it. I love those things. Green, white, little swim baits, green and white. It's no secret. Anybody can look up how do I catch lake trout. And there's a bunch of YouTubers out there who will show you like what they're using.
Yeah.
And they say if it ain't chartreuse, it ain't no use. You see something down there and it doesn't like what you're selling, reel it up, change a bait, send it back down there because it very well could be the same fish that's perusing the area.
Yeah.
You know, he comes by, he looks at this white tube, he leaves for 20 minutes, he comes back, looks at the same white tube again. He's like, nah, I'm not falling for that.
Yeah.
Leaves. You drop a green little swim bait down there. Oh, that's something different. That wasn't here 10 minutes ago. Maybe I'll smack that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what's correlating to your baits for bears.
Yeah.
Throw them a little curveball. Throw them a little something new.
Yeah.
I think that's as far as, especially in bait barrels go, trying a little something new.
Yeah.
Other than the tried, true, and tested things, maybe. And that's what's going to broaden your horizons as an outdoorsman is not being so closed off.
Yeah.
Not to accepting new ideas, maybe moving around, trying some different stuff.
Yeah. You have to be able to adapt.
Yeah, adapting, and you'll find you will be so much more successful.
I agree.
Than just sticking to your roots and then you next thing you know, you're getting frustrated at yourself. What am I doing wrong?
Right.
And if you start switching and trying some new stuff out, you could be mad at yourself for what am I doing wrong? But at least you tried something different.
Right.
At least you know you're making the best effort.
Keep throwing stuff at the wall till something sticks.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And like moving around. If there's no bears in the area, move. If there's no fish in the area, move. But I've always said this thing. My worst thing I ever learned from my dad. I don't leave fish to find fish. Yeah. Well, sometimes that's what it takes. Sometimes that's exactly what it takes. Like if I'm fishing, let's see, I get 3 fish on the radar. None of them bite me. I'll throw a curveball at them. None of them bite me again. Screw these guys, man.
Yeah.
This is my crowd, not my crowd. Go move 100 yards. Go try 10 different, if you're in 100 feet, go move to 90 feet. If you're in 80 feet, go move out to 100 feet.
Yeah.
You know, just try, move, bounce around.
Yeah.
But if you're finding something consistent, you know, do try to stick with that for the day, and it always varies per the day.
Right.
I mean, with anything you do.
So I did have one question kind of along those same lines. I was watching a YouTube video. This was actually just like 2 days ago.
You were watching a YouTube video?
I do that from time to time.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
I consume other media other than just my own.
I need to update your trophy badge.
But this guy, he was riding around on this little sled ordeal on this lake, ice fishing.
Mm-hmm.
And he was showing off with his little system. He had a ice auger mounted, easy access. He had a radar mounted, easy access. And he would just ride around and drill a hole, stick his radar down in there, and start looking for fish. If he didn't see fish, he was moving on to the next place. Now, I know that there's different trains of thought as far as how human activity affects fish movements and stuff like that. And I've been told kind of both ways. People like him that might think they're going to drill a hole and be right on top of the fish. I've also heard from other people that there's like a settling time because you're making a bunch of racket, you're drilling a hole, you're making splashing and noise, and if there is a school of fish right below you on the ice, they're going to scoot out of there, and then they might come back and circle back around. So what, in your experience, what's that been?
I've got a prime example for this. I had this ex-girlfriend. Maybe she just didn't like to hear me talk or didn't like my taste in music. But we'd go fishing all the time.
It's the only two things it could have been.
Yeah, right. Flip a coin and pick one. But I'd just be either talking or I'd play some music or something, and she'd be like, it scares away the fish, and that's what your parents tell you when you're a kid. Like, shut up. They just don't want to hear you talk.
Right.
Exactly. Maybe that's what she was doing to me. But she goes, turn the music off or stop talking. Let's just be quiet. And blah blah blah, and that there'll be better fish. And I was like, okay, I'll listen, honey. And we're out ice fishing one day, and I was like, all right, hey, we're gonna move. This is when I was able to pull the truck up onto the ice,
right?
And I was like, hey, just keep fishing. I'm gonna go turn the truck on. I'm gonna get nice and warm for you. I'm gonna start packing up everything. We don't need to actively fish right now. We'll load it up, and then we'll just couple 100 yards.
Yeah.
With the truck running on the top of the ice, I hear something. It's chasing me. And I got it. And I run around to open up the door, and there she is with the pole bent over, freaking big fish on.
Nice.
And after we landed that thing and let it go, I looked at her. I'm like, So you don't think that truck messed with that fish at all, huh? That truck, vibrating on top of the ice. So, I would say to an extent it probably does. It to an extent it probably does.
Yeah.
I know as far as like when I ice fished in the lower 48 for like crappies and bluegill, like if I drill the hole down in let's say 10 feet of water, yeah, of course that's going to make some type of racket and it's kind of spook them. And you just hope that they kind of recongregate to where you were. Sure. And I think what you were maybe what that guy had with the fancy drill a hole and a sonar setup. There's this new equipment out. It's called Garmin Live Scope.
Okay.
And what this thing is, it's a transducer, and most typical boat transducers and ice fishing flashers, they only give you a vertical reading. Whether it's in like a couple feet and it's just straight down. That's all you get is straight up and down.
Gotcha.
Right. With the new Live Scope stuff, you could drill a hole, you could drop the transducer down, and the little mount that the transducer goes on, you could spin around 360 degrees, and it will shoot out your sonar at an angle, and it will tell you what is there within a certain radius.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So you can drill a hole, and let's say I'm pointing my transducer towards you. I could see everything from the top of the ice down to 60, 70 feet, and 40 or 80, 100 feet your way out past that.
Wow.
I know a lot of guys who have been buying them, and they're just so expensive. I would have one. if somebody came to me and they wanted to trade with me, I'm going to admit I would have one. But like I've heard, I kind of stand by this, and I've heard other guys kind of say this too. But in my opinion, it does take a little bit away from what ice fishing has been for years.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I go out and I'll drill 5 holes like every 10 feet and get like a good idea in my head what the bottom looks like. Either I'm on a slope or sometimes when if you've been around them enough, the bottom reading on those sonars will kind of give you either like a hard red, like a small hard red line. That's a hard bottom.
Okay.
Sometimes they'll give you like a kind of a yellow, kind of a wide yellow, and then a red bottom. That's kind of more like vegetation, maybe a little more silty, maybe a little more dirty.
Okay.
You got to be around that equipment long enough to really know how to read those bottoms. But I do that when I drill those holes. I know if I'm working with like a hard bottom or like a lot of vegetation, dealing with those lake trout, I kind of move off of the really vegetated areas.
Gotcha.
But maybe that's what that guy had, was a Live Scope.
It could be, yeah.
And I think if you're drilling holes to find fish like that, that is 100% effective.
Gotcha.
I mean, I've seen videos of guys who, let's say they have a Live Scope where I'm sitting and they're pointing it towards you. They walk 20 feet towards you. And like I said, that thing can pick up everything from the top of the ice, however many feet that way. They can watch the auger bit go through the top of the ice and be like, they'll watch fish underneath the top of the auger, and they'll watch the fish kind of like poof away a little bit.
Really?
And they'll recongregate back.
Yeah.
But that is such an advanced tool guys are getting into nowadays.
Wow.
And they mount them on the boats too, like your trolling motor. They'll hook them up to like their trolling motors, and they'll like point the trolling motor in either direction. They'll look at this big freaking TV screen they got on the boat. They'll see a bass, pike, muskie, whatever on a bed, however many feet away. They'll point.
And you can tell what kind of fish it is?
Oh yeah. Like
really?
It's well, to an extent.
To an extent, yeah. To the trained eye.
Yeah. It is very, very clear.
No kidding.
Like you'll be able to see if, like, let's say we're working with panfish, you'll be able to see a school of fish that, are more circular in shape. If you're looking for pike, you'll see a fish that is more elongated in shape. I've even seen some videos of walleye where they see the big, crazy sickleback on them, and just kind of by the shape they could tell it by that.
No kidding.
And I think it's so effective because when we're dealing with these typical flashers just jigging up and down, when that thing disappears, you have like no idea. Like it's hard. You can't read the fish's body language by a little mark on a screen. It's so hard.
Yeah.
But when you're seeing this like live action of like what this fish is doing. Maybe it's looking back at me and turning away. And then when I jig it, it turns back to me again. And then maybe it just goes away, out of my vertical sonar. Well, I could take that live scope and then go look for him now. And there he is. Now he's at my 3 o'clock over here, running away from me that way. All right, I know that fish is long gone. Or he'll run over 50 feet this way and he'll sit there.
Yeah.
Like, all right, now I'm going to go chase this fish. Now I'm going to go run over there 50 feet, drill a hole right on top of him and drop it on his head again. but to me, like I said, I'll be the first to admit, I'd have.
Yeah.
If I can afford it, or if somebody just wanted to trade me.
So and in theory, I mean, really, I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that say that's cheating, right? Like, oh, that's cheating. That's, that's not really ice fishing. But
it is. Like,
in theory,
it can be.
I mean, most other styles of fishing, you're able to see the fish.
Yeah, like fly fishing.
Like with fly fishing and whatnot. Like you're able to see how it's reacting to certain flies.
Yeah.
Change out your fly to change its reaction, see if it likes this or that.
Yeah, 100%.
Put it right in front of its face. And like, so, I mean, is it cheating? Or is it just equating it to a different style of fishing?
Do you think that at some point that live view system will get banned from ice fishing because of a disagreement in the fishing world? Because if there's one thing I know about fishing, it's that the ethics discussion runs hot in the fishing world.
Yeah, especially when you're using electronics.
Especially electronics, especially the fly fisherman crowd. The fly fishermen are like the archers of the hunting world.
Yes. Like
bow hunters tend to be that, kind of nose in the air. Well,
very conservative, very ethical.
I'm a bow hunter. And I am the most ethical of any of you.
And they think they're the most personal with the animals.
Right. And so do you think that in the fishing world, because there aren't, relatively speaking, compared to big game hunting, there aren't nearly as many rules and restrictions and regulations about ice fishing as there are about hunting, right?
Right.
So do you think that that you could see down the road when technology, because we all know technology is just getting better, right?
Mm-hmm.
At some point, we're going to have satellite abilities on our cell phones, and we're all going to be able to stay in touch even from sheep hunting without needing an inReach anymore. That day will come, whether it's in our lifetimes or not. It will happen at some point.
It'll be in Elon's life.
But in the fishing world, like take for instance the trail cameras.
The cell phones.
In several states now. Was it Utah? I believe it was. We just talked about this a couple of weeks ago.
Or Idaho.
I
think it was Utah.
I don't think it was Idaho, but possibly Utah.
Yeah.
But they banned the use of any trail camera during hunting seasons.
Oh,
yeah.
Any trail camera.
Any trail camera, not just cell cameras. And then Boone and Crockett said that there were no cell cameras allowed to be used
in the taking of their game.
For the pursuit of any animal that was going to be entered in the book.
Oh.
And so Alaska has, obviously, we all know that you can't use cell cameras for hunting now. That's cellular communication.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they categorized it. So do you think that there could be a day where they ban stuff like that in order to keep ice fishing? Otherwise, there's really nothing harder about it than it is in the summertime when everybody has fish finders.
Mm-hmm.
Which they're not going to be able to regulate fish finders because half the boats that get sold nowadays come with them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
So what's your thoughts on that?
If I want to break it down, I could see the live scope capabilities being limited.
Yeah.
In that nature. I do know that there are some like big name bass fishing tournaments down the lower 48 that have excluded those from their tournaments.
Right.
Like,
do you think they could cut out like specific lakes and say on this lake, this is a trophy fish lake, no electronic?
That'd be just such a hard thing to regulate. And honestly, at that point, no electronics in general, I don't see the point. Like you're just taking that away from me and
you're just going to go fish somewhere else.
Well, I'm going to go fish that lake with the electronics. If I'm being honest with you, I'll take the, I don't know what to tell you. I'll go try to hide the thing underneath the snowmobile or something and take my chances. But I think in like the majority of these like trophy lakes, especially through the ice, I mean, anywhere in the United States you go that has ice,
Yeah.
that allows ice fishing, I think in most cases it is imperative that you have a sonar to at least regulate depth, because at that point, like you were saying with the boats, if I'm a boater and I'm out, cruising looking for fish, and let's say I'm trolling, I'd like to know my depth.
Yeah.
And I mean,
right.
running aground.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to know your depth for running aground.
Me too.
Yeah.
How would I know if I go out there and I do all this work to shovel a hole off and drill a hole, and then I drop my line down with a little weight on it, a little depth finder weight. Oh man, I just did all this work. I'm in 5 feet of water. Dang it,
Yeah.
man. Like, all right, I got to go out and move. But it's just in the ice fishing world. I mean, ever since I grew up, I had a little fishing finder. My dad always had a little flasher.
Okay.
I think it's extremely imperative that you have some sort of electronic to at least find your accurate depth. We can all do, this with our arms and, gauge 5.5 feet, 6 feet when we go to pull up our line, when we're checking our depth.
Yeah.
I can see in the ice fishing world, maybe not in like our civilian, just average Joe world. I don't think that would be something that would get banned electronics wise, like just general electronics. But I do see as far as like tournaments go, or maybe even, if you want to be sticklers, maybe even some trophy lakes, like no live scope capabilities. Like I could see that stuff getting kind of putting get the kibosh put on them, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, I tell people that go fish Harding, they ask me, hey, can you give me any tips? And the first thing I ask them, well, do you have any type of sonar?
Right.
And if they say yes, I say, great, that's half the battle. And if they say no, I say, well, I'm just frankly honest with them, like, you're going to have a very, very tough time fishing that lake. And then I tell them, if you don't have a sonar and you are like dead set, I just want to go fishing and I want to go fish on this lake because I know that there's big fish in there. If you're going to go out there fishing with no sonar, the best you can do, if I was going out there blind, I'd drill my hole. I would try to find, but what I could tell would be 80 or 70 to 100 feet of water. And what I would do is I would drop my bait all the way to the bottom and I would reel it up, like reel, like 5 feet at a time. Hit the brakes, jiggle, reel, 5, hit the brakes, jiggle, all the way to the top of the ice, and then send it right back down. And I would do that all day.
Gotcha.
I would do that all day.
Just keep it moving, keep it in front of them.
Keep it moving. Because that's, you got to imagine, if I'm a fish, especially when I got one on sonar, trick is getting them to like chase you.
You're right. Yeah.
Chase you around. Think of a wounded bait fish. Like, and you see it. I see it especially down like the in like the wild and like the saltwater.
Yeah.
Let's say we got a pot of fish swimming with some sharks.
Yeah.
These fish are like food to these sharks, but the sharks know that fish is not wounded. It has plenty enough energy to run away from it. And the shark knows it's going to be basically wasting all of its energy trying to chase down this full, healthy fish.
Yeah.
Now, as soon as one of those fish has a bad wiggle to it, as soon as you maybe put like a little harpoon, as soon as there's that little bit of blood in the water, those sharks will key in on that and they're going to go for that messed up fish.
Right.
Now, if I take that to lake trout and Harding Lake, I'm not totally just screaming them away from them. Like they will chase you as fast as you can reel, but the whole intent is to get them to bite you. So you want to reel away from them and you want to think like you're running and I'm getting out of breath. Oh man, I got to stop. And then those things will be right on top of you like that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like one of those other secrets.
Yeah.
I want to give out a good secret is getting them to chase you, acting like you're running out of steam.
Yeah.
And then eventually, like, you got to think of a bait fish going full tilt, losing it. All right, I'm totally out of breath. and then I'm kicking. I'm just trying to do anything I can to get away from this big fish chasing me. And that's when they're gonna smack you.
You're creating a scenario.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
You gotta, and it's when we were saying this vertical versus casting. It's so hard to get like a natural presentation on this vertical jig. I mean, what bait fish do you see out there that swims from 100 to 10 feet straight up without diverting left or right? So you gotta accurately represent a wounded fish, as in like losing some steam and then those final twitches. And
gotcha.
And I'll tell you, I could say this, I could give everybody the keys on how to fish this out there, but there's days I go and I put exactly what I just said into action out there, and they'll come up and they'll get 5-6 inches from that thing, like right on it, and they'll turn away and swim off, and then you're sitting there scratching your head like, what the heck did I do wrong? But it's nothing, you did everything perfect. It's just
that's fishing.
Yeah, and that fish is a wild animal.
Yeah.
Like, who knows what that thing is actually going to do? You're lucky to just get one to chase you.
Right, yeah. And it's the same in the hunting world. I mean,
exactly.
So you can do everything right, and that moose just never comes close enough.
Like, if I don't go and chase that, let's say this bear I see is a mile away from me, and he's walking away from me, why not go chase him? Like, why not?
He might stop.
He might stop. He might stop, take a nap. He might put his nose to the sky and smell something. He might turn around and walk right back toward you. You never know. Go close the distance enough to where you think, all right, this is all right. But you got to try.
Right.
Like, you got to try.
Now, you'd mentioned the depth, the 70 to 90 feet, somewhere in there. I mean, is that like where you're finding, I guess, realistically, that'd be more specific to a deeper lake, like Hardy.
Yeah, sure.
But like, is it typically speaking? I mean, the deepest point of the lake is where you're looking for when you're going.
No.
Or is there like a sweet spot there?
No, not necessarily. If I'm talking about harding, I mean, I've fished anywhere from 15 feet deep to the deepest point, which is 145 feet deep.
Wow. That's a deep lake.
I've caught them 6 inches below the ice, and I've caught them on the bottom, and I've caught them everywhere in between.
Gotcha.
Another secret. I will say, if I'm fishing that like 100-foot range, I find a lot of my fish that I'm picking up on radar that I can get to chase and actively bite are coming somewhere like mid water column. Let's say 100 feet, I'm seeing them 72 feet up.
Okay.
And kind of caveating of what I said earlier, if you see something, if you're fishing at 80 feet and you see something come through at 40, rip up through it.
Right. Yeah.
Like, rip up through it. Never know what, like, because he doesn't see your bait way down there. But I will say, I've had my bait up like 40 feet and they come through at 90 and they come up like with force.
Right. Yeah.
And you got to think that water out there is so clear. You might only be able to see, at least in my experience, when I drop it down. I like to know how clear the water is. I drop my lure down. I could see the lure. I just stopped seeing the lure on 25 feet. That fish's element. It knows everything that's in that lake, and it, me, I have I'm looking through clouds.
Yeah.
For me, but that fish can see a lot farther than I can. And I've seen fish, come through 40 feet down below me and come through up, like knows I'm there and comes through up with a passion.
Wow.
Yeah, it's honestly it's absolutely insane. I've pulled fish up off the bottom in 110 feet of water.
Yeah.
Made them chase me all the way up to 20 feet, and that's when I stand up and look down the hole, and you see them coming from the depths, man.
Yeah.
Like it owes you money,
or like you owe it money.
Yeah, like I owe it money, man. It's coming for me.
Yeah.
And man, I just absolutely love chasing those fish on that body of water, because if you watch any like YouTube videos out there, like lake trout fishing, if you look at like Uncut Angling or like Jay Siemens or Clayton Schick, all these like big names I'm rattling off. You'll see like when they get on a fish on radar, it's like they don't pull that thing away from it at all.
Mm-hmm.
They wiggle it, within a foot of it the entire time. And eventually they're going to get a strike. This is the only body of water that I've been able to see, and any like YouTube videos I've been able to like watch that even correlates to where you have to make that fish chase you.
Yeah.
And make it chase you, make it close that distance. Otherwise they're going to come rush right in. They're going to get 6 inches from it.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to turn away.
Yeah.
Unless you have like some kind of bait, unless you have some
Right.
kind of like non-artificial lure.
Right.
Butt juice.
Butt juice. Or a full herring, or just a full herring.
Full herring, shrimp. I've seen people using shrimp and stuff.
Something like really soft and something that actually has taste to it.
Yeah. And all those regulations, if anybody's listening in the state, I mean, you can find all of that online. And most of the lakes, the bigger lakes, will have a sign that'll break down the regulations for you too.
Yeah, right at the boat launch.
What kind of hooks you can use, if you can use bait or not, and stuff like that. So just make sure you're playing within the rules. That way you don't get hung up doing anything illegal.
Yeah.
So let's break this down for anybody, let's say, new to the state.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you and I were both GIs, came up here, know what that feels like to kind of be in a new area. So let's break it down. So for the new guy in the interior of Alaska, or really, I mean, I guess most of this applies to anybody ice fishing anywhere. What would your recommendations be for, let's say, like, we'll probably stick to like tents, and I'd actually like to pick your brain about sonars.
Mm-hmm.
Entry level, intermediate, and advanced.
Yeah.
Like what should somebody start with if they're just wanting to dip their toes in the water, see if they even like it? It's not going to be the most expensive thing, but it'll work.
Yeah, of course.
Up to the more advanced stuff.
If we're talking about tents, I'm sure like Eskimo now is a household name.
Yeah.
And ice fishing gear in general. They have like, I think it's called like the Quick Fish 2. It's like the smallest, most portable, lightest tent they make.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think they insulate them. But you can get that paired with the buddy heaters make them. It's like the portable buddy.
Okay.
It's like a single burner that sits
that
on top of a 1 pound propane tank.
Yeah.
I've used those.
I use those that was my first heater I had up here when I had my little tents.
Yeah.
That if you're looking for one of those like flip overs, Eskimo makes one of those. It's called the Sierra.
Okay.
I had one of those for the longest time until I upgraded. The thing I like about what now I have is an Escape 2600. What I like about my Escape is I can actually stand up in them. The doors are up along the sides, so I don't have to cross over my holes or over the heater or over my sonar to get out the front door of the Sierra. However, I had one of those for the longest time. I absolutely love those flip overs. You can throw everything you own in the sled of the Sierra, throw a cover on it. They're completely covered up by any snow or wind or any other BS that you're going to be either towing behind a machine or just walking and kicking up into the thing.
Right. Yeah.
I know Freybill makes tents. They make it's like a quick some type of pop-up tent, but their sled is a lot more narrower. It's a lot more lighter, more compact. And those are quick setup. You can actually stand up in them. The sled itself, they have holes that pop out in the bottom of them, so you're fishing in the sled.
Oh, really? No kidding.
Yeah, they're sweet.
That's
that
slick.
would be more of like intermediate thing. I think Dave Jen's Fish Trap. I don't know if I think they still make those, but those are great. My dad had those when I was a kid.
Okay.
And he had a pair of them that he would, outfit us and who would just come with nothing. And he was never a fishing guide up until this recent year, until he retired and he started guiding now.
Oh, nice.
But
got a whole family of fishing guides.
yeah, my brother, me, my dad. But yeah, on the intermediate level, any of those like Quick Fish 2, 3 tents that are non-insulated. Gosh, I mean that it's the lightest, easiest thing. They're small, but if you're just going out by yourself, you don't need much. And those Quick Fish 2s, they could fit you and a small child in, or like a dog or something.
Okay, yeah.
I know plenty of guys have dogs and they just want to go take their dog out on the ice. They throw a blanket or their little bed down. They keep them nice and warm and off the ice. That's a big thing if you want to bring dogs out, is getting a mat or something for them to sit on.
Yeah, make sure they're not just bare pawed on the ice.
Yeah. And then like as far as like intermediate goes, I think the Eskimos, they make a Quick Fish 6. It's like kind of like a double hub. They also make like a 5-sided like pentagon looking one.
Okay.
Yeah, those are not. I can't remember the exact name of those, but those are nice. They're a little heavier. You can get them in the insulated versions.
Okay.
And I will say, if you're very serious about ice fishing, I would definitely recommend you kind of upgrade to an insulated tent,
especially for the temps we have here.
Yeah, especially for that. It just keeps a lot of the. If you have a non-insulated tent, you'll see if you're using propane heat, propane emits condensation.
Yeah.
It frosts up the inside of the tent. When you bring it inside all wrapped up, it's going to thaw. It's going to get everything wet. You're never, ever going to get it really dry.
Gotcha.
The thermals do it as well, but not as bad. They hold a little bit more heat, a little bit better. And a good way to prevent that condensation is leaving a window open or leaving.
Ventilate.
Yep, yeah. They all have little vent flaps on them, leaving those open. And if you're going to be like master, like you're either guiding or you are just extremely passionate and you want to be as comfortable as possible, any one of those intermediate tents I just labeled off would be great for you. But the little thing to upgrade yourself with, you can go to any home supply store, hardware store. They just about all have them. If you can't find them there at your local place, go on Amazon. These little foam workout mats, the ones that little pop right into each other.
Really?
Yeah, a little 1/2-inch thick foam mats,
like the little gym floor.
Yeah, exactly what they are. They fold up into a pack. You only need like a pack of 4 of them, and I think they're like 2x2.
Yep.
Yeah.
So a pack of 4 of them covers what, like 16 square feet? Maybe I'm wrong. Chicago public school system failed me. So maybe I'm wrong on that, but that is such.
Oh boy, I didn't expect that one.
That is such
funny.
Like if you can get some foam mats, that's going to make your experience so much more enjoyable. Putting it down where you stand, maybe where your sonar goes,
or
where the heater goes. Yeah, kneeling down. Well, it just keeps your feet up off of the ice. It insulates it. And if you can,
huge difference.
Oh, a massive difference.
Yeah.
I've been like doing a lot of lake camping where I just take the my Escape, the flip over. I line the entire bottom with those mats with the heater. The heater dries them all out. In my flip over, I can fold up one of the chairs and run a cot lengthwise across the side. So the cot would cover up about half the length of the tent. I can sit up in my chair, fish my one hole, get up in my cot, move my heater around so everything kind of fits. Move the sonar up onto the chair because I'm not using it because I'm sleeping. But yeah, there's
nice.
Yeah.
Right on. Yeah, so I know I've looked at it. I think it's Eskimo. Do you know what the difference is between the fast fish and the fat fish?
Those were the names I was trying to think of.
Okay.
I think the fast are the non-insulated. The fat fish, I could be completely wrong. I know in their like nomenclatures, you'll see like an I at the end. That is the insulated.
Okay, yep.
The fat fish is the one I was highly recommending. That's like the Pentagon or like the 5 to 7 sided ones. Yeah, they're great. And they've made some new doors on them now. If you've ever been in an ice fishing tent, they got those like triangle doors to where you have to like zip up the top, unzip the bottom, and then step over the actual corner of the tent. They've made some new doors on them now to where there's an actual door where you unzip it from the bottom all the way to the top, and there's nothing connecting the corner there, and you can just walk right through it. Not have to step over anything. I fished in those. I really like those. The more newer tents that they're building now all come with gray interiors as opposed to black. That way, if you have some sort of light in there, like, if you've ever been in like a black ice fishing tent, you open up a
like
window.
A cave. Yeah.
Yeah, it's still like you open up like one window, and then that's all it is. A beam of light comes in. It doesn't light up anything
like an Indiana
else.
Jones movie.
Yeah, exactly. Going into the caves. But the gray interiors have been great for like you open up a window and it lights up the whole thing.
Yeah, refracts the light around.
Yep. If you're getting into like really serious, especially like overnight camping, I've bought a wood burning stove fan that I've kind of modded out a little bit. I've cut a little slit into and I put it on the Mr. Buddy heater. And that pushes air around. They make the little battery operated fans you could hang up in the top of your tent to push the heat down to you. Those floors make a huge difference. And if you are so inclined and you're a little more versed into sewing than I am, you can go out and buy a wood burning stove, cut a hole for a jack and put they sell them at hardware stores. It's a little rubber stove jack for tents. Yeah. And you can go mount one in there yourself.
Do any of them come with stove jacks? That was literally gonna be my next question to you, because a lot of us have wood stoves that we'll bring for certain tents that we have, be it wall tents or teepees or something.
Something I totally didn't think of. There's this newer company I've seen the last couple of years called Lost. They're the green. They're the green tents.
Oh yeah, they've got those at Frontier, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Or at Sportsman's.
Is it Sportsman's? Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, they got them at Sportsman's. Some of those models come with a little wood stove jack. Another thing I left out, I meant to touch base on, but Otter, they make tents as well.
Oh, do they? Not just sleds.
Not just sleds. They make the Otter Pro Lodge, and then they make the Pro Lodge XL. Those all come with gray interiors. I think they even come with like a little orange flag, a little reflective flag to hang up outside. That way nobody's cruising across the lake in the pitch black and they smoke your tent. Right. Those are great tents. I know a lot of guides down on the Kenai Peninsula and Anchorage area use those. I've heard some great things about them. And they make them from, the big ones to the small ones.
What kind of a price point are those looking?
For your Otters, I would say they're up in that Pro Lodge. I think last time I saw one of those was like $500 to $600, and the XLs were $8.
Right. Yeah.
Typical like flip overs. I think my Escape, you're gonna pay like $700 for. But that's with the sled and the seats and everything.
Full
package. They make there's actually Otter makes a 3-man flip over. Okay. I think Eskimos, they just make up to a 2. But like the biggest 2-man they make, it's the Taj Mahal, man. I'm talking like it is an absolute Cadillac to be in, especially if you have 2 people, you have all the space in the world.
Right.
But the Otters, they have like the big heavy duty sled, 3 seats in them, all the room in the world to work around in them. And the Lost Creeks, they're pretty newer company. From what I've seen, they have a much better price point. I couldn't tell you anything about the customer service rating through them.
Right.
But those Lost Creek, I think those like 5-sided hubs with the stove jack in them, you're looking at like $550 last one I saw.
That's doable.
Oh, that's totally doable. I mean, it's just an investment. Or look on Marketplace, look on Facebook, Craigslist.
There's always people coming and going.
There's always people coming and going, especially if you live in one of these military states.
Yeah. What about let's jump off into sonars and whatnot. If somebody's looking into even just a basic one to find out their depths and maybe see some grainy images or something like that.
So Lowrance makes a pretty affordable sonar. I think they're close to like $200. It's like the Hook 2. It might not give you the typical ice fishing flasher, but it'll give you the graph, and really that just about works the exact same.
Okay. Yeah.
I know Vexilar makes some kind of lower end ice fishing flashers, but they're kind of jumping up in price, like close to $300 range for the Vexilars, which is great. I mean, I've used those ever since I was a little kid. Markham kind of makes the same kind of lower end price point ones, but then you have like they've got one that's got like an LED screen as opposed to if you've ever looked at an ice fishing flasher, especially the old style ones, it's not a LCD screen. It's a mechanism on a spinner, like a clock, and this spinner will spin and flash with lights on it.
Okay, yeah.
And they're like typical like LED bulbs in there that spin and flash.
Gotcha.
And if you sit there and look at one of these flashers all day long,
mesmerized,
you will see them in your sleep. I'm not kidding you. Like, you will close your eyes and all you will see are reds, greens, and blues and yellows. And it is, oh gosh, it is, yeah, like you said, mesmerizing.
Yeah.
But if you're a little older and you want to just kind of keep the eyes in check, go to like one of those LCD screens. Right now I run a Humminbird Helix 7. And like I said, I bought this thing for the boat originally, and then was playing with the settings and saw, oh, ice mode. What's this?
Gotcha.
And then all you needed to do was buy the sonar package. It's like another $120, and then you gotta get the battery. It's another $100 typically. For the longest I can remember, I've always used lead acid batteries.
Okay. Yeah.
In the last few years, as you probably know, they've started coming out with lithium ion stuff.
Yep.
Lithium takes weight down by like almost 70%. I remember lugging my old little hole hopper setup with my old Vexlar, and just remember this thing weighing a ton.
Wow.
And now I switched over to my lithium, and I feel like I can throw this thing around and not have a care in the world. The only problem with those lithium batteries, they'll give you what's called a false read on a lot of your system setups. The way the lithiums are designed they're designed to be, they're putting out all the power they can up until, they're going down.
Gotcha.
So when I'm using my flasher, I can get about 28, 30 hours out of mine. And then within about a 30-minute time period, I'll look over. My 100 will go to 80.
Right.
And I'm like, and then I'm like, oh, great. And then it'll go from 80. And you could just watch it tick down, 78, 75.
Yeah.
And then like you turn around, you come back. Oh, 60. No. Like it's going down. And
I'm not ready.
But yeah, I don't want to go home yet. The lead batteries, they'll give you a good reading as far as up until they're dead.
Yeah, okay.
That's just something you got to be mindful with the lithiums. You want to talk about augers now?
We can, yeah. I don't know if there's how many different kinds of augers there are, but
plenty.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Gosh, I started out with a propane auger, and if you're looking to like just get into it, either that or like if you're just like want to try it out, you either don't know if this is going to be your sauce or not. Get a hand auger.
I would say I started on a hand auger.
Yeah, get a hand auger, especially if you have those like small ice fishing seasons where you don't get more than 8 inches of ice.
Right.
$80 ain't hard to spend on a little hand auger to drill through the
tank of gas these days.
Right. Exactly.
And really, like you said, if it's only going to be less than a foot thick of ice that you're dealing with, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
You'll get through it quick.
With a sharp blade. Oh yeah. You'll be in like Flint. But if you're, getting a little bit more experience, you want to have a nice heavier duty auger. Propane's a good way to go. I like the propane augers. They start easy. As far as the cold goes, as you know, like propane is a liquid.
Right.
Liquid gas. The colder it gets, the more gelled up it gets, and it gets a little harder to start it. From what I've seen, it's really hard to get those propane augers started at about 15 below and down. It's a little harder to get them to start, but I take them, put them in the jacket for 5-10 minutes, shake it up, shake it up, and it gets released those gases a lot easier. And then you're also running your most buddy heaters. You're running off the buddy heater anyway.
Yeah, so you've already got propane with you.
No need to bring two different sets of tools. There is lots of what?
I was gonna say, do they tend to be more expensive or cheaper than the gas varieties?
The propane, they're right up there with them.
Right,
maybe
same
like
price.
$50 more if you were looking at from like a 2-stroke to
but
a
comparable.
propane.
Yeah.
Gosh, I've been like diverting people away from 2-stroke engines on those things. One,
really?
they're loud. Let's say a lot of people get a little overzealous. They set up their tent first. They want to know where all their holes are. And then they drill the holes inside of the tent. Oh my gosh.
Man.
Yeah, they'll smoke you out, man. They'll smoke you out.
I bet.
But they're loud. They're just a pain in the butt to start. I always think of a chainsaw, trying to start a chainsaw.
At 20 below.
At 20 below.
Yeah,
it just sucks. And then you're dealing with the gas and oil mixture, and that's just always a pain if you're just trying to get a little more streamlined.
Right.
So how much on average for, say, I don't know, let's just pick an in-between size diameter for a bit size. Say an 8-inch auger, you walk into the store and you just want to buy one. You don't want to go buy the pro tournament model, but you don't want to buy the one that won't start when it's below zero.
Yeah.
So how much middle of the road for an 8-inch auger are you looking at getting out the door?
Well, a couple years ago, I picked up a Jiffy. They make a 4-stroke auger. I have taken that thing out at temps as low as 40 below and started that thing up within 3 pulls.
Wow.
The beauty of that auger is you can't over prime it. They have a little primer button. You can't over prime it, so it won't let you flood it. They got a great little choke system on it, and I think I walked out the door with that thing with like $450. Maybe ask your family for a gift card. Maybe get it down a little bit, but the propanes, they'll be right up there in that like $400 range too.
Okay.
For like an 8-inch bit auger. Now they make them in a 10 too.
Yeah. For folks listening around the Fairbanks area, where is the best place in town to buy augers?
That would be Frontier Outfitters. They're off 3rd Street.
Yeah.
Also, Sportsman's carries a big line of augers over there too as well.
Yeah. They've got a couple. Yeah. They tend to
what
be
about
sold
like
out a
Big
lot.
Rays? Do they sell them?
I don't believe so.
Yeah.
I don't believe so.
I don't think I've ever seen them there, but I've never looked either.
The best place in town for those jigs I was talking about, the Kodiak custom tubes, would be at Big Rays. They sell just about all of them.
Okay.
Columbia River Tackle Company, that would be at Frontier. And swim baits, gosh, you can get those just about anywhere. I like the Storms. That's why I use a lot of the Storms. My favorite colors are white, just like pure white swim bait.
Okay.
Either like 3/8 of an ounce up to 1.5 ounces ish. But yeah, if I had to give you 3 top lures for catching lake trout in the area, number 1 would be Kodiak Customs green donkey tube. I call it the WMD. And my big Laker box I call that the football because it's like the size of a suitcase, But yeah, the green donkey tube from Kodiak Customs. Number 2 would be a white 3 or 4-inch sculpin jig from Columbia River. And number 3 would be the 1 ounce Storm white shad jig.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those are like 4 or 5 inch long.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Very cool.
That's good information.
Yeah.
And then as far as any other equipment you might need, rod and reel, it's all pretty much just whatever you find.
Yeah, dependent.
Yeah.
I mean, you could find if you're just starting out, dude, go to Frontier. They got some really cheap rod and reel combos over there. Some of them already have line. It's like a nice little light rod with like 4-pound test on it for like $15. And you ain't gonna go wrong with one of those. If you want to change out your line, I'd recommend if you're fishing for the small stuff, just put on some like regular old ice fishing 4-pound test line. Anything more than that, like you gotta imagine that thing's sitting there all summer long. That thicker line will kind of bind and it'll leave a big spring in your line when you go to fish for it. So you really won't see a bite and you'll have all this slack to pull up when you go to set the hook on a little fish. So
do you like monoline mostly for ice fishing or what do you
I mean, for the average guy, monofilament line, the price point's there. I mean, it's been around forever. It ain't going to fail you.
Right.
When I'm fishing for my big lake trout and pike, I run a 20 to 30 pound Power Pro backing, tie that to a barrel swivel. And then I run, about the length of my rod is always a good place to just start, but usually like 38 inches, just about a 3-foot 15 to 20 pound fluorocarbon leader.
Okay.
And then I tie that directly to my jigs. I just
You
don't like
the clips.
No, that's one more thing to fail to me.
Yeah.
2, the profile. I just don't want something else on there. I just want to tie it to the lure.
Gotcha.
Don't want anything to look not.
That makes good sense.
on
Yeah.
there.
Right.
Yeah, I know. I've heard people say that about grayling fishing too. Grayling can be very particular,
Yeah.
and so tying straight to your piece there is what you want. You don't want to use a steel leader. You don't want to use any of those clips and stuff like that.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Well, cool. You got any other tips for new beginners? Anybody who's just wanting to get out there?
Yeah, the biggest thing is to get out there.
Yeah.
Gosh, find a friend, find some family that would be willing to go half in on you for some equipment.
Sure.
Find a guide.
Yeah.
Like you can contact me on my Instagram or my Facebook page. My name is Maxwell Stepp. I think my Instagram handle is like JR Jaws on. Yeah, like hit me up with questions, guys. I love answering questions. The biggest thing I get out of it is watching somebody else catch a fish.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this and just want some info, please hit me up. Or if you'd like to come book a trip, please come do it.
Yeah.
I'd love to take out new people.
Do you have a website or anything like that, or is just your socials?
I'm pretty cheap, so anything free advertising I love to use. But I'm on Facebook at Steps Guided Adventures.
Okay.
I know it's pretty low hanging fruit, but
yeah.
And your last name is spelled,
Stepp.
as people will see in the title of this show, is
Right.
STEPP.
Yep, that's me.
All
Two
right.
P's.
Double P.
Step double P.
Yep.
Yeah. Just like Tigger, right? TI double gut.
I don't know if you could say
Or-
that. Oh, Tigger. Tigger, yes.
Like
yes.
from Winnie the Pooh.
Yes.
Man. I don't know what you're talking about. But yeah,
no clue.
So Steps Guide Service, is that what you said?
Steps Guided Adventures.
Steps Guided Adventures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, I follow you on Facebook.
Thank you.
So
Appreciate it.
I haven't been on Facebook in months, but I will go follow you on Facebook.
Yeah, I'm on there for the marketplace.
And you said you're on Instagram too?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
all right.
All right. Well, we really appreciate you coming on the show today, man, and sharing your secrets, your knowledge, your information.
Yeah, just don't tell anybody.
Yeah, no. What's said in this room stays in this room, right?
Yeah. No,
You better scratch the last 3+ hours.
Man, no, I just want to say I really appreciate you guys having me on here and taking some time to let me come on here and talk and tell you guys about myself and what I do. And I'm just here. I'm here for everybody in the state, man. I just love getting people out. That's my jam. I've caught enough fish in my life, and I think I get a lot out of watching other people succeed in the industry.
Yeah, that's
all
awesome.
I'm about.
That's awesome.
Good deal.
So.
Yeah. Well, thanks for your time to come on today. It was
Yeah.
good to finally get you on here.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, appreciate it again. Guys, if you have any questions about anything we talked about, probably best to hit him up, but you can also hit up the Northern Hunter if you'd like. If you go to either of our social medias, if you search at the Northern Hunter, we'll show up with our logo. If you go to our website, thenorthernhunter.com, we've got a nice contact button there. And if you'd like to support the show and help us grow, make sure you're hitting up the shop page or the partners page and getting some good merch or some good supplies from our partners with the discount codes that they've provided for you. And as always, please subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to us. Leave us a rating, a review. 5 stars is always best. And share it with your friends. Get this information out to anybody you know, maybe trying to get into ice fishing or anything we talk about on this show. I mean, there's always a share button right there. So, all right. Well, thank you guys for listening. Maxwell, thank you once again. And until next week, get out there, get after it, and good luck. We'll see you there.
All right, folks. We all know that one of the most common mishaps in hunting is damage to your rifle scope. Last year, I found the solution to that problem with the Stealthy Hunter rifle cover. It wraps around your scope and actions securely to protect it from getting knocked off of zero or even severely damaged. Stealthy Hunter also has a glassing pad and a wide variety of supplements for the outdoorsman, such as protein powder, CBD products, turmeric, and gut health supplements. They also make a lightweight trauma kit weighing in at just 14 ounces that includes everything you need and nothing you don't for all of your backcountry medical emergencies. To shop all of their equipment and supplements, go to StealthyHunter.com and enter the discount code at checkout, The Northern Hunter, to save on your order today. All Stealthy Hunter equipment is proudly made in the USA.